is dominated by a lot of people who look like you, male and white, and very few who look like me.
Yeah.
Are there any thoughts about how to address that?
Yeah. Obviously, we want everybody to see themselves in our products. We also want the industry workforce to be much more diverse than it is. And there's slower than we'd like progress, but there is progress there. The most important thing that will happen here is everyone in the world will be able to create at a level that is still hard for us to imagine. This is gonna be an enabler of human ability to create, to flourish, to make new things, to create new companies and services like we've never seen. And we want everybody to get to do that, not just the white dudes.
Yeah. What keeps you up at night?
The rate of change in the world, in the economy from this, we haven't seen it yet. And just because we haven't seen that yet doesn't mean we can get complacent. Let's say we can make the technology super safe. We can't kind of do anything about the rate of diffusion through the economy. Like, people want more and better, and there's sort of some strong forces at play here.
If you were in charge of regulations, what kinds of regulations, what kinds of boundaries, what kinds of restrictions do you believe should be put in place?
A partnership between the companies developing this technology and governments is really important. One of the first things to do, and this is now happening, is to get the governments to start figuring out how to do safety testing of these systems, like we do for aircraft or new medicines or things like that. And then I think from there, if we can get good at that now, we'll have an easier time figuring out exactly what the regulatory framework is later.
Who do you speak with in the federal government?
We speak with a lot of people in the executive branch, and then dozens of people fairly regularly in Congress. There's a new AI Safety Institute in the US that we work with. I personally probably have some conversation with someone in the government every few days.
Every few days?
Yeah.
And what are y'all talking about?
What the US needs to do to lead here, how we're gonna build enough data centers, how we're gonna deal with chips and where those chips are produced and make sure that geopolitically we have a good strategy there, how to think about safety for AI and how the government should test it, how to think about collaboration with other governments, what the economic impact of this is going to look like, how the government should be using this, all that.
The bottom line for, I think, most people is whether or not you can trust the people who are in charge. And I know you went through a phase where your own board said, we don't trust you. And then you got yourself another board. How do we know we can trust you?
So the bar on this is clearly extremely high. The best thing that we can do is to put this technology in the hands of people, talk about what it is capable of, what it's not, what we think is gonna come, what we think might come, give our best advice about how society should decide to use this, say when we think it's important to not release something, which we also might get wrong, and build up that trust over time. But it is clear that this is going to be a very impactful technology, and I think a lot of scrutiny is thus super warranted.
I actually saw a headline that said you were the most powerful and perhaps most dangerous man on the planet. And I'm wondering how that sits with you.
It's definitely strange to hear you say that. I don't feel like the most powerful person or anything even close to that. I feel the opportunity, responsibility in a positive way, to get to nudge this in a direction that I think can be really good for people. And that's like a serious, exciting, somewhat nerve-wracking thing. But it's something that I feel very deeply, and I realize I will never get to touch anything this important again.
Just what we've seen thus far of people with nefarious ideas misusing it causes me a lot of concern. And yet when I sit with you, you're so calm, you're so relatable, it seems like everything's okay. Is that how you really feel?
I don't want to give a false sense of security here. I think I'm tremendously excited for the good. I think the good will be incredible. But there will be bad too. And we'll mitigate as much as we can, we, the whole field. But this technology will be misused like every other technology before it. And we need to be clear-eyed about that, even though I'm so convinced that the upside will be so tremendous. And I think we're all so excited about it. We do have to be responsible for the whole package.
Whenever news breaks,
we are here in Israel, a nation at war after that brutal surprise attack by Hamas.
On the ground in Ukraine, reporting from Lewiston, Maine.
The scene of a horrific mass shooting.
ABC News Live is right there everywhere.
From the scene of that deadly missile strike in Dnipro, Ukraine.
Reporting from the earthquake in Turkey.
In rolling forward, this tornado tore through this little town.
From the most devastating disaster in Hawaii.
From Charleston, South Carolina, on the 2024 campaign trail.
In Iceland, let's go.
Traveling with the president in Mexico City.
Wherever the story.
From the front lines. From southern Israel.
Outside the Gaza Strip.
In Beirut.
From the FBI.
Reporting from the nurses on the picket line.
Here at 10 Downing Street in London.
Streaming live to you.
Wherever the story is.
Wherever the story is.
Wherever the story is, we're going to take you there.
You're streaming.
ABC News Live.
ABC News Live.
You're streaming ABC News Live.
ABC News Live. Streaming free everywhere. America's #1 streaming news.
Baywatch is a fantasy.
Baywatch was sexy.
Baywatch was the #1 show in the world. When you hear that theme song,
I had no idea how much fun I was going to have.
It was addicting. People were just eating that stuff alive.
it was a wild time, and I was a wild chick. Jason Momoa exploded.
Carmen was a bombshell.
Pamela Anderson was an icon.
Pamela was this sweet girl from Canada who came to get the American dream.
I'm really proud of everything I've done. Almost.
Baywatch was a whirlwind of epic highs and bitter lows.
It was a lot of pressure.
Everybody was disposable, and if you didn't fit into their brand, you were gone.
Greed, lust, fame.
Everyone likes to watch sexy things.
Hey, good morning, America. Good morning, America.
Good morning, America.
Are you ready? They are ready. Covering the biggest events in the country right now.
There's a lot going on here this morning.
You don't just see it, you feel it.
I'm in.
I'm in.
I'm in too.
I'll be here.
I am here and so happy.
I'm in.
I'm in too.
Michael, George, Claire,
Ginger.
The question is, why was Matthew Perry doing ketamine? How did he get it, and who is to blame for his death?
In the case of Matthew Perry, it was kind of the perfect storm.
In September and October 2023, he was getting 6 to 8 shots of ketamine a day.
5 people, including 2 doctors, all arrested.
Matthew Perry was a money stream for everybody involved.
It is very odd to live in a world where if you died, it would shock people, but surprise no one.
What happened to Matthew Perry? Now streaming on Hulu.
So I use artificial intelligence on a day-to-day basis. Most recently, actually, is my kids love playing around with image generation. My kids have had a great time drawing dinosaurs into random pictures.
I use like the simplified versions of AI, like on TikTok. You know how like when you do like the filters and you can see how you looked in the 1930s and they'll like change your picture from now to like, you know, an AI version of yourself.
I work as the Muslim chaplain at Rutgers University. I'll use it when I'm writing a sermon. I will never use the actual end product, but it's something to think about. And oftentimes when I've done that, that's what scares me.
I was a little bit apprehensive even about using it because there was so much being said about how it will basically eat you alive if you're not careful. And then I decided to talk to it and interview it. And it just spit out the answer so quickly. It was just stunning.
So, Marquez Brownlee, you have 20 million subscribers who all rely on you for all things technical. And this is a moment we're having. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, look, I've been in the tech world a while.
Yeah.
And a big part of being in this world is trying to figure out when this new thing is a big deal or not. I can say confidently it does feel like a big deal.
I think it's a very big deal.
Yeah. I want to show you what an AI-generated video 1 year ago looked like.
Okay.
And it's this. This is The Rock eating rocks.
Okay.
It's kind of a meme. It's a pretty funny video. It's
Yeah.
obviously not a real video.
Obviously.
The AI-generated
We can tell that
video
that's
would
not
look
The
like
Rock
that.
eating rocks.
No, you can tell that.
Yeah.
And you look at that and you say, okay, that's a pretty ridiculous looking video.
Yeah.
This was 1 year ago.
Yeah.
Right? Now, this is what AI-generated videos look like.
What do you mean?
This is not a real person, not a real scene, no real cameras were used. This is completely generated by an AI-generated video tool. Now, you can still kind of look at pieces of this and tell something's not quite right.
No, I can't.
But that looks like a video. Here's another one. This one's a little more interesting. It's a handheld cinematic shot of a child on a beach holding an ice cream cone.
That's what you asked for. That's what you typed in.
That's what I typed in.
I'm assuming that AI had this stored somewhere, the picture of the child.
AI has millions of photos and videos of millions of children stored that it's trained on.
Okay, are they real children? Is this a real child?
It's not a real child, but it looks like one because it's trained on a ton of real children.
Is that real ice cream?
It sure looks like it. And this is, again, like if you pay super careful attention to the physics, then maybe you could tell it's not real.
So how are we supposed to know? How are we even supposed to know what is real and what isn't?
That's one of the biggest challenges right now, is because there aren't really any rules to it. So everyone who makes tools like this kind of is coming up with their own rules on the fly. Yeah. Oh, I'll add a watermark to the corner, or I'll add some metadata to the file. So if someone downloads it, then they can tell.
How are we supposed to know where to look for a watermark?
It's a couple layers deep. So the point is there isn't really any good set of rules yet.
I know this has happened to you, it's happened to me, is to have people take an image of you, put words into your mouth that you didn't say, you're selling things you don't even know you're selling. I mean, I can't even keep up with all the things.
What I'm about to show you actually is a voice generator.
Yeah.
This is actually a real one right now that's trained on my last video.
Yes.
And you can ask it to say whatever you want, and it will sound just like me. Is there anything you'd like it to say?
I'd like to say Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers.
Peter Piper picked a pack of pickled
peppers.
Let's see if he can do it.
Okay.
Generate speech.
To the untrained ear, this sounds basically exactly like a recording of my voice.
Yeah, it does.
And even to the trained ear, it's pretty convincing.
Yeah.
Peter Piper picked a pack of pickled peppers.
Oh my God. Oh
so,
my.
In a matter of seconds, this tool is generating really high quality recording level
This is
fake
not
voice.
good. This isn't good.
So that's what I mean.
I can say all of this is really fascinating, but it leaves me a little bit more concerned. You don't seem to be as concerned.
I'll say I've seen this story before. Cars in general went through this. Smartphones, of course, went through this. Computers went through this. The internet went through this, where at their very formative years, they're really, really confusing and potentially amazing, but potentially horrible. And eventually, you know, humans sort themselves out to lay the rules down in a way that we can actually trust that will be better than it is bad. So I've seen the story before, and I'm hoping it plays out the way it's played out before.
Thank you.
No problem.
Next, we have Tristan and Asa, who are here to talk about the incredible speed in which this is happening.
It's moving really fast. We had experience with another technology that was introduced a little bit recklessly, and that was social media. And we're here because we don't want that to happen again with AI.
What was your experience?
I made infinite scroll. You know, that thing where you scroll and the phone just keeps loading more? I invented it before social media, and I invented it to make people more efficient. And it's now used to waste over 500,000 human lifetimes every single month. Addiction, doom scrolling, polarization, these are all consequences. And what I learned the hard way is that my good intentions as an inventor just wasn't enough.
And AI is moving way faster and is way more powerful in its impact on society than social media.
I thought Marquez's example actually caused me to have an aha when he was talking about all technology has gone through a similar phase where people question whether or not it was good or bad. So you say what to that?
It took time. It took decades to go from the invention of the car to adding seatbelts and driver's licenses and speed limits.
Yeah, speed.
That's right.
We had to figure it out.
Yeah.
So the problem with the AI is that we don't get that time.
So explain to me why AI is now moving so fast.
In 2017, there was a huge breakthrough at Google, and researchers there discovered a way that AI could start to learn a kind of universal language where it could speak the language of anything. And then suddenly, the same lines of code could learn the language of DNA and learn how to make drugs, could learn the language of images, and could learn to do all those things that Marquez was showing. And so the rate of innovation went through the roof. And of course, once AI can do anything, people start to use it to do everything.
That's what's so confusing about AI, is it's going to give us all these benefits at the same time that it's undermining the foundations that we depend on. And you can't separate the promise from the peril. So I think instead of getting caught up in the question, is AI going to be good or is it going to be bad? It's about, is it happening at a pace that our society can respond appropriately?
But guys, it's here. That's why I started this program by saying it is here. So the argument isn't whether or not it's going to continue or whether the speed's going to continue, because it is already here.
And some of it's here, but even more powerful forms of AI are coming.
Yes.
OpenAI's stated goal is to be able to build systems of AI that are even smarter than humans, because there's trillions of dollars to be made on the other side. And so now is the time for us to say, what are the choices that we want to make about how this technology comes out?
What do you want to see happen now?
OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, they need to be held accountable for the harms that they would create so that they're all incentivized to pull back and go at the pace that they can help society be prepared and not be overwhelmed.
And who is holding them accountable?
We need laws.
Whenever news breaks,
We are here in Israel, a nation at war.
In Rolling Fork, this tornado tore through this town.
From Lewiston, Maine.
The scene of a horrific mass shooting.
From the scene of that deadly missile strike.
ABC News Live everywhere.
In Iceland, let's go.
On the 2024 campaign trail.
Here at 10 Downing Street.
Wherever the story is.
We're going to take you there.
You're streaming.
ABC News Live.
ABC News Live.
You're streaming ABC News Live.
ABC News Live, streaming free everywhere.
Where are we going next? We got this ongoing search for the animal we've been trying to find.
These are the last lands. The national parks around the world that have to be saved.
There.
Here's to Good Mornings in America.
Can you feel the love?
Oh, yeah.
Mornings that inspire, filled with hope, kindness, joyous surprises, and so much fun.
This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy.
Start your day with Good Morning America's ray of sunshine, highlighting the best of America and helping
Make dreams come true.
Wow.
I'm just so happy.
It's so good.
get ready to smile and put the good into your morning, America, because
You know what will make the morning better? A little ray of sunshine.
Baywatch is a fantasy. When you hear that theme song, it was a wild time, and I was a wild chick. Jason Momoa exploded.
Carmen was a bombshell.
Pamela Anderson was an icon.
I'm really proud of everything I've done. Almost.
Baywatch was a whirlwind of epic highs and bitter lows.
Everyone likes to watch sexy things.
What does it take to be the most watched newscast in America?
We are part of an operation.
Is this our combat operations center?
We're approaching the gate. Militants came in from different directions. Nuclear reactor. So you have a couple loaded and ready to go. The house is destroyed, but the flag.
Not a tear in it.
How important it made to USA. Great work.
Hi. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Ismael? David.
I'm David Muir.
I know who you are.
You
Watch
do?
you every night.
ABC's World News Tonight with David Muir is America's most watched newscast. Why do so many people start their day here?
From ABC News, this is Start Here.
To be in the know and get a different take on the day's top stories.
A lot of news today, so let's get into it.
Listen now to the Daily News Podcast honored with 4 Edward R. Murrow Awards and see why the New York Times calls it a news podcast worth listening to. Start Here, ABC News. Make it your daily first listen.
Now, that's a part of the story I bet you didn't see coming.
Wherever you get your podcasts, Start Here. Why do so many people start their day here?
From ABC News, this is Start Here.
To be in the know and get a different take on the day's top stories.
A lot of news today, so let's get into it.
Listen now to the Daily News Podcast honored with 4 Edward R. Murrow Awards and see why the New York Times calls it a news podcast worth listening to. Start Here, ABC News. Make it your daily first listen.
Now, that's a part of the story I bet you didn't see coming.
Wherever you get your podcasts, Start Here.
Baywatch is a fantasy. When you hear that theme song, it was a wild time, and I was a wild chick. Jason Momoa exploded.
Carmen was a bombshell.
Pamela Anderson was an icon.
I'm really proud of everything I've done. Almost.
Baywatch was a whirlwind of epic highs and bitter lows.
Everyone likes to watch sexy things.
It was a regular day for 19-year-old Melissa Witt.
Something terrible had happened to her.
You had several suspects.
All these kinds of leads.
A known serial killer in your area. Could he be involved?
We're actually finding key evidence that could have slipped through the cracks.
Her last hours on this earth were horrific.
This beautiful young girl. Police will find out what happened.
At Wit's End, the hunt for a killer, only on Hulu. What does it take to be the most watched newscast in America?
We are part of an operation.
Is this our combat operations center?
We're approaching the gate. Militants came in from different directions.
Nuclear reactor.
So you have a couple loaded and ready to go. The house is destroyed, but the flag...
Not a tear in it.
How important it made to USA.
Great work. Hi. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Ismael? David.
I'm David Muir.
I know who you are.
You
Watch
do?
you every night.
ABC's World News Tonight with David Muir is America's most watched newscast.
Good afternoon. I'm Phil Lipoff. We have breaking news for you at this hour. Former President Donald Trump is safe after gunshots were heard in his vicinity. That's what we are being told. A senior law enforcement official tells ABC News a suspect with a high-powered rifle was spotted in the area of his golf course in West Palm Beach. We're told Secret Service opened fire on that suspect. Suspect dropped the gun, but was then spotted by witnesses and tracked by local authorities. The Martin County Sheriff's Office tells ABC News police detained that man following the shooting. 2 photos posted on the Facebook page of the Martin County Sheriff's Office show a car on the side of the road surrounded by police. The FBI is now taking lead in this investigation. For his part, former President Trump issued a statement moments ago saying he is safe and, quote, "Nothing will slow me down. I will never surrender." And those are his words. We will continue to update you as we learn more from the FBI taking lead on this investigation. You're looking at the podium where there will be a press conference. It has been delayed a couple of times, but when it happens, we will bring it to you live right here on ABC News Live weekends. In the meantime, while we wait for this, we're going to take you back to regularly scheduled programming.
We were scammed by AI. It was one of the scariest things I've ever been through. I received a phone call, and it was a local number, so I answered my phone. It was my daughter on the line. I mean, she was so upset, like she was crying, and she said, "Mama, I've been in a terrible accident, and I am so, so sorry." And a man gets on the phone, and he says, "Is this Chasten's mother?" She interrupted a drug deal that I was doing, and I lost $900 because of her. So I want my $900 back, or I'm gonna kill her. So I'm driving like 100 miles per hour down the interstate, and just as I got ready to get off the interstate, a text come in, and it was my daughter. And she says, "Mom, what is going on? I'm at the doctor's office."
My immediate reaction was, how the heck did they get my voice? How did they know I called my mom Mama?
I'll tell you what I learned from it. I will not ever take another phone call unless they're in my contact list.
FBI Director Christopher Wray is here, and we want to talk about threats from AI and other aspects of law and order. Do you remember the first time that someone showed you evidence of AI being used to commit a crime, and what was your reaction?
So it's funny you ask. I've been hearing about AI, for a long time, even before I became FBI director. But one of the first memories I have of dealing with it in this job was I was in a conference room, and a bunch of our folks got together to show me how AI-enhanced deep fakes can be created. And they had created a video of me saying things I had never said before and would never say. And I was staring at this video of myself, and I found it incredibly convincing. And it really, believe me, it caught my attention. Because I kept thinking, wait, that's not me. I never said that. What is this,
Yeah.
Right now, AI is most useful in taking what I would call JV criminals and making them varsity.
How so?
And that's a problem.
How so?
For sure. We had a case not that long ago with a child psychiatrist in North Carolina who took images that he was able to get online and then manipulate them using AI to make them into child pornography. One of the things that made this particular example so egregious and horrifying is that the child psychiatrist took photos from decades earlier, from the first day of school, a school dance, that kind of thing, and essentially was able to manipulate those images to show them naked.
Wow.
There's so much out there now on social media and on the internet, well-intentioned things that people post about their lives, but in the wrong hands, enhanced by AI, people are vulnerable.
So you said more and more types of crimes.
So that would be one. Another one is something called sextortion, which we're seeing more and more often. Somebody posing as a peer targets a teenager, typically. More and more, it's young boys. So you're a teenage boy, you get a reach out from someone who claims to be a friend of a friend. She sends compromising pictures of herself and invites you to send pictures back. Except it's not a girl. Those images are enhanced. And in fact, it's some guy behind a keyboard in Nigeria. And then once they have the images, they threaten to blackmail the kid and say, if you don't pay up, we're going to share these images, we'll ruin your life. Unfortunately, this has real-world consequences. There have been at least 20 teenagers who committed suicide in these situations. And it's just heartbreaking.
Do you think we have the laws or regulations in place now to keep Americans safe from all that's coming, all the AI threats?
I would probably leave legislating to the legislators, but what I will tell you from an FBI director's perspective is that this is a type of technology that we see manifesting itself in more and more situations, more and more types of crimes, more and more types of threats. And there's a degree to which overall our laws haven't kept pace with the technology.
Does that frustrate you?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. What I worry about is the day, which is coming, it's not here yet, but it's coming faster than we would like, where those elite bad guys will find AI sophisticated enough to take their game to a whole nother level.
And the elite bad guys are doing what?
So the elite bad guys are the ones, for example, conducting the most sophisticated cyber intrusions. To me, no country represents a broader, more severe, more comprehensive threat to American innovation, American ideas, to our economic security, and ultimately our national security than the Chinese government. China has a bigger hacking program already than that of every major nation combined, and has stolen more of Americans' personal and corporate data than every nation, big or small, combined. The scale of the threat is significant. If you took the FBI's program and just said, forget Russia, forget Iran, just do nothing but China, the Chinese government's hacking program, they would outnumber us 50-1.
Does that mean the race that we all feel that we're in now, the race to be first, to be better, is to our advantage?
I do think we need to win the race. I think we are ahead in the race. But I would also say that we shouldn't, in the course of trying to win the race, disregard the importance of building in safeguards and controls and that sort of thing to help protect abuse. So speed, yes. Recklessness, no.
We've got an election coming. Do you think this election cycle will be compromised by disinformation?
I fully expect to see disinformation by foreign adversaries. We are finding all too often that something on social media that looks like Bill from Topeka or Mary from Dayton is actually, you know, some Russian or Chinese intelligence officer on the outskirts of Beijing or Moscow.
What should we be on the lookout for?
All Americans should try to be, more discerning consumers of information. It is incumbent on everyone in America to bring an intensified sense of focus and caution to the use of AI and how AI can be used by bad guys against all of us, but not to panic. I don't think this is a time for panic.
With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any other newscast. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir, America's #1 most watched newscast across all of television. Whenever news breaks,
we are here in Israel, a nation at war.
In Rolling Fork, this tornado tore through this town.
From Lewiston, Maine.
The scene of a horrific mass shooting.
From the scene of that deadly missile strike.
ABC News Live everywhere.
In Iceland, let's go.
On the 2024 campaign trail.
Here at 10 Downing Street.
Wherever the story is.
We're going to take you there.
You're streaming.
ABC News Live. ABC News Live.
You're streaming ABC News Live.
ABC News Live, streaming free everywhere. ABC News Live, honored with 8 Emmy nominations, more than any other streaming news network. And ABC News Live Prime with Linsey Davis, the first and only streaming show nominated for Best Outstanding Live News Program. This is ABC News Live.
I fear that AI is going to take a lot of people's jobs.
I like making analogies of the Industrial Revolution. We found other places to specialize.
I have a robot in my pharmacy that fills drugs all day long for me. I did not like it when it first got there, but I couldn't imagine being without it now.
I hope that AI will be able to change health care in a way that you can diagnose so that that information would go from the doctor to the patient in a more efficient manner.
I think that made me shift to nursing school because basically I'm always going to be needed. If I'm trying to future-proof myself, am I going to be successful is a real question.
So, Bill Gates, you've been on this tech rocket ship for quite some time. In the 70s and 80s, and even before, you were bringing us computers. And then in the 90s, we had the internet. And now, I'm just wondering how you think this AI moment stacks up to where we've been, to where we are right now.
Well, AI is going to have more impact than even the personal computer, the phone, the internet. In fact, it builds on those things in this phenomenal way. But this is the biggest technical advance in my lifetime.
What does the world look like if we get the best of AI?
In 10 years, I'd say education and healthcare will have changed dramatically. So in medicine, there's the research part, the speed of scientific innovation across all diseases, even the neglected ones like malaria and HIV, that will be accelerated. but perhaps even more profoundly, whenever you're confused about medical things. I mean, even in the US, your bill is confusing, your MRI report is confusing.
Yeah.
That can be dramatically improved. You almost can think of the AI as like a third person sitting in, doing the transcript, suggesting the prescription, and then you have this whole session has been transcribed. And so instead of the doctor facing that computer screen, they're engaging with you, and this software is making sure there's a really good transcript.
One of the things that's exciting to me is how this is going to impact kids and their personal learning.
Yeah, the dream that you could have a tutor who's always available to you and understands how to motivate you, what your level of knowledge is. This software should give us that. You know, when you're outside the classroom, that personal tutor is helping you out, encouraging you. And then your teacher, you know, talks to the personal tutor and says, okay, what's your advice about how I do things in class the next day? They won't have to spend time grading homework. They'll immediately know how that went.
Does this mean you eventually don't have teachers and everybody just has their own AI teacher?
We're trying to help teachers, you know, that personal engagement, motivating a kid, meeting them where they are. You know, the AI in no way is a replacement for that. But the fact that as the teacher's saying, okay, what should you work on? It's working at your level, that personalized notion. And, you know, we can see it's already working pretty well.
I talked to Sam Altman, and he was pretty direct about AI's impact on the workforce. A lot of jobs may go away. Do you agree? And how should we start preparing ourselves to navigate that?
Yeah, particularly as you get in this, not the 5 to 10 year time frame, but beyond that, where the AIs, not only are they very good at kind of white collar things, but also the robotics embodiment is taking a lot of blue collar type things, whether it's warehouse work or factory work or even, you know, cleaning rooms, cooking, things like that.
And so that's not only just a threat to people's livelihoods, but, you know, people gain dignity and a sense of purpose and meaning from work.
That's right. We've organized our society around the fact that if you get a good education, if you get a unique set of skills, that you'll be rewarded for that. If we get 20 or 30% more productive, that's all to the good because there's so many unmet needs. But if you get, 300% more productive, in a way you'd say, well, that's only good because then we can make more stuff and we can have more leisure time. But the way that we organize it and maintain people's dignity will require a lot of engagement and, picking leaders who are attuned to taking that excess and making sure we're all sharing fairly. People are not going to have to work as much in this.
Yeah, I've heard you speak of 3-day work weeks.
Yeah, in the long run, as we get past that 10 years, work won't be as important. And, that, I think is basically a good thing.
What are the jobs that you believe are going to be undisturbed? What skills are going to persist in this new world?
Yeah, that's very hard to make a prediction. I mean, there'll be aspects of creativity. There'll be aspects of appreciating people, social work, the teacher really engaging that student in the rich way. Even that, I can't guarantee that software won't eventually get good at that. But, for the next generation, the more human, the more engaged you are with other people, that is a skill set that is in such short supply, whether it's mental health or education, that we can never have enough of that.
I mean, I've expressed several of my concerns, but do you have none? Do you have no?
I have significant fears about the risks. This is the first technology that is happening faster than even the insiders expected.
It's happening faster than you guys thought.
Absolutely.
Do you think that your company, that Microsoft and other companies that are going to make a lot of money off of AI have an obligation to help us manage and navigate through this change?
Absolutely. The fact that there will have to be regulation, that the way we think about taxes will have to change quite a bit. If the companies are working with the government, then at least we can craft something that's not just profit-driven.
But what did we miss with the internet and social media that we can use to apply now to this moment of AI?
Well, I would say, speaking for myself personally, and I think many others, that we were a bit naive.
Yeah, so Sandy Hook is a synthetic, completely fake, with actors.
We thought the internet, the availability of information, would make us all a lot more factual. The fact that people would seek out kind of a niche of misinformation, we were a bit naive. And bringing those lessons of, let's get ahead of this. Let's get the politicians to be users and have a dialogue about maximizing the benefits while minimizing the negatives.
It was a regular day for 19-year-old Melissa Witt.
Something terrible had happened to her.
You had several suspects.
All these kinds of leads.
A known serial killer in your area. Could he be involved?
We're actually finding key evidence that could have slipped through the cracks.
Her last hours on this earth were horrific.
This beautiful young girl. Police will find out what happened.
At Wit's End, the hunt for a killer, only on Hulu. You're watching America's #1 streaming news. Keep streaming with ABC News Live.
Reporting from the floating pier off the coast of Gaza, I'm Martha Raddatz. Wherever the story is, we'll take you there. You're streaming ABC News Live.
To me, what it means to be human is to be... Boy, that's a good question.
Humans, we have a soul. We went through different levels of life, from newborns, toddlers, children, teenagers.
Human in Arabic is insan, and it translates to two things. One is forgetfulness, and that's a quality that all of us share. And the second root word of it is uns, which is to be loved. Are we going to lose that aspect of humanity?
I think that as humans, there is nothing that brings us greater discomfort than lack of knowledge. And I think that AI, in many ways, comes out of that drive to know all the answers, to be in control.
As a religious person, one of the things that I reflect on is be careful about comfort, because too much comfort is actually going to make your life worse, not better, because it'll decrease your overall capacity.
What I do know is that I locate the divine in relationships between humans and the environment. To me, that's God and that's the divine, and that's something that technology can never stand in for and can never replace.
I am so delighted to be able to talk to Marilynne Robinson, one of America's greatest novelists, who writes of all the messiness and all the grace of being human. So what do you make of this moment that we're in and these two words, artificial intelligence?
Well, it's certainly a departure from any sense of intelligence we have had up to this point. The mulling, cumulative knowing and interpreting the world that has been called intelligence.
Because we've always thought of them as uniquely human traits.
Exactly. The impulse behind it seems to be.
Good afternoon, I'm Phil Lipoff. We begin with breaking news. The FBI is now investigating a shooting in West Palm Beach as an attempted assassination against former President Donald Trump. This would be a second time. Law enforcement officials now confirming they arrested a suspect who fired shots near a golf course used by Trump. His campaign says he is safe and well. We are awaiting a press conference, you can see here, where we are hoping to hear more details about this. And of course, we'll bring that to you live when it happens right here on ABC News Live. In the meantime, we spoke to Martin County Sheriff, the office there, who took the suspect into custody after they stopped the car. You can see some of the pictures here. The car is stopped. They said they took great care in stopping it. We talked to the Martin County Sheriff, and he told us this.
I can tell you this is a very fluid scene. It's not static at all. I-95 is still shut down. We've had a pretty serious crash out there. So we first like to do is ask motorists to be careful and try to stay off I-95. We're on 714 right now. North of here is shut down. We have stopped the vehicle that the FBI, the Secret Service, and the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office asked all law enforcement to look for. We had the vehicle description, and we had a tag number. We mobilized out on the interstate. Two of my MARC units picked up the vehicle. We followed it for a bit. We're able to contain it using some of our bigger vehicles that we use for specialized stops. We got the vehicle stopped. Since then, the FBI and the Secret Service have responded to the scene. It does appear that we certainly have the vehicle involved in the incident at Mar-a-Lago, and we have the suspect that they were looking for. And now the FBI and the Secret Service will take over that investigation.
So what's the process with that? Now that you have identified this vehicle, did you take them into custody, or is that all going into the hands of the Secret Service and the FBI?
Well, we initially took them into custody and held them till the arrival of the federal authorities. The search of the vehicle, looking for any weapons that may be in there, will now be up to the federal authorities and the U.S. Attorney General.
And then at this process, what was that like, stopping him? I know you were out on looking for him. Every law enforcement agency around this area was. What was that process like for you guys here in Martin County?
Well, I missed the stop. I was on the way from home, of course. It sounded very tense on the radio. We knew that we had a bolo. Be on the lookout for somebody who had opened fire on the President of the United States. I would say there's probably not a more volatile, potentially dangerous situation than that. Our units were completely locked on. We were ready to go. Had the vehicle fled, we would have stopped it. Of course, God forbid, had there been a gunfight, we were ready to engage. Thankfully, because of good tactics, stopping the car, felony stop, getting him out of the vehicle, coming back to us, we were able to stabilize the scene without any further violence.
Give us a timeline here. When did you first identify that vehicle, and when were you able to finally stop him?
It was just right after 2 o'clock this afternoon, following the bolo, the be on the lookout that we received from south of us, that our road units picked the vehicle up. And then we waited a while. We didn't stop him right away. We didn't want a high-speed chase. So we were able to wait until we had adequate units, surrounded the vehicle, and then forced it to a stop.
I know this is a fluid situation, but did the suspect put up any fight, or did he stop once he realized there was multiple vehicles there following him?
We did not give him an opportunity to put up a fight, so we had him contained, forced off the road, taken out at gunpoint, pulled back in what we call a felony stop, and he was safely taken into custody.
And as you said, you believe this may be the suspect and the vehicle involved in the incident down in Mar-a-Lago. I know it's still a very fluid situation here.
This is the vehicle, and this is the suspect, and he is in custody.
So is he in the custody right now at the Martin County Jail, or is he taken somewhere else because of the involvement down in Mar-a-Lago?
He is currently in custody by the Martin County Sheriff's Office, my agency, but as soon as the FBI Secret Service are ready, we'll transfer his custody over to them.
Final question for you here. Obviously a fluid situation out there on I-95. It's going to be shut down, I would imagine, still for a while. What's the process out there, and what's your warning for drivers headed around this area?
Yeah, if you're northbound on I-95 and you're approaching Palm City, we're right here in Palm City, Florida, get off and go to the turnpike. We had to clear the vehicle with an explosive vehicle on loan to us, an explosive dog from the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Office. Governor DeSantis made contact with us and let us know we had all the FAP help we wanted. And of course, we're profoundly thankful that we were able to neutralize the suspect and to hopefully increase the safety for President Trump.
One other question. Can you tell what kind of vehicle it was, what you found inside?
It was a, let me leave it at this. It was a dark-colored, middle-year SUV, but I think the specifics will be released by the federal authorities.
Sheriff, is there anything else that's important to note about what you guys did here at this scene, or anything else that people need to know out there?
Well, what's very important is this. We took as high a profile felon off the streets as is possible. We did it safely. Nobody else was hurt. And I'm thankful to the men and women of the Martin County Sheriff's Office who put their lives really at significant risk. They had no idea what they were encountering. I mean, think about it. They're stopping a car. The bolo is for a suspect who had just fired at the President of the United States with a tactical rifle. It doesn't not get scarier than that.
All right, those are our first real solid details from what happened earlier today. We do know a senior law enforcement official has told ABC News that a suspect with a high-powered rifle was spotted there at the golf course in West Palm Beach. We're told Secret Service opened fire on that suspect. Investigators say they are still trying to determine a motive. You know, just 2 months ago, Trump was shot during an assassination attempt at a rally in Pennsylvania where a bullet grazed his ear. You can see these pictures there. Joining me now is ABC News' Luke Barr with the latest on the investigation, along with retired senior Secret Service agent Don Mihalik and ABC News' Jack Date. Luke, let's start with you. What more do we know? You heard what the sheriff said there. What more do we know at this hour?
Yeah, well, Phil, the FBI is now calling this an attempted assassination on the former president of the United States. The details are coming in rapidly at this hour. What we do know, as we just learned from the sheriff, is that a suspect was spotted on the periphery of former President Trump's West Palm Beach golf course. He then, it appears, pointed or made a move of some sorts with the weapon. It was engaged by the Secret Service and then fled. He fled to Martin County, as we just heard the sheriff. But Phil, authorities are taking no chances. This is the second attempted assassination of former President Trump just this cycle, according to the FBI. So this is a very fluid situation, Phil, and we expect to hear more from authorities.
Yeah, and as you're speaking, Luke, we can see the podium there. As you see, more of the microphones are getting set up, so we should be hearing from them soon. I want to bring in retired senior Secret Service agent Don Mihalik, also joining us now. Yep. Don, talk to me about what happens in a situation like this. For the Secret Service to open fire, they must have been particularly worried.
Yeah, Phil, first of all, let's compliment the Sheriff's Department and the Secret Service agents assigned to President Trump's detail for a tremendous response and from tracking down and finding this potential threat and stopping this threat from continuing on. In a situation like this, when the Secret Service agents are doing a golf course maneuver, you can't shut down a golf course. So it's a very difficult, protective environment to work within, where the agents are constantly surveilling and scanning, looking for threats. From the reporting, it looks like they identified a threat. This individual, allegedly, they saw a gun barrel pointed in the direction of former President Trump, which made them open fire against the suspect. The suspect fled. The pursuit was on. The Sheriff's Department were contacted. They had a coordinated response, and they took the suspect into custody. What's going to be interesting, of course, in the investigation now that the FBI and the Secret Service are involved is to identify exactly what the suspect was doing, what his intentions were, and why he was there. What was his point of trying to target President Trump if, in fact, that's what he was trying to do?
Don, quickly, will you let me know how unusual is it for Secret Service to open fire on somebody?
Because of the Secret Service advanced process, it is highly unusual for the Secret Service to open fire on somebody. It's traditionally only when they see an active threat towards the protectee, which, according to the reporting, is what we have here. We have a suspect who showed every means, mode, and opportunity to engage in active threat against former President Trump, which forced the detail to engage that suspect with fire. So it'll be interesting to find out all the details and see what that suspect was up to and why he was targeting President Trump, if in fact that's what he was doing.
All right, John Santucci joins us by phone right now. John, I want to bring you in. You're constantly speaking to the Trump camp. All right, John, stand by 1 second. We understand we're going to get some more details now from the news conference.
All right, 1:30 this afternoon. Call came out, shots fired. That was called in by the Secret Service. Because we're in constant contact with them all the time, we were notified of that, and we had units here that immediately sealed off the area. Fortunately, we were able to locate a witness that came to us and said, hey, I saw the guy running out of the bushes. He jumped into a black Nissan, and I took a picture of the vehicle and the tag, which was great. So we had that information. Our real-time crime center put it out to the license plate readers. And we were able to get a hit on that vehicle on I-95 as it was headed into Martin County. We got a hold of Martin County Sheriff's Office alerted them, and they spotted the vehicle and pulled it over and detained the guy. After that, we took the witness that witnessed the incident, flew him up there, and he identified as the person that he saw running out of the bushes and jumped into the car. Now, in the bushes where this guy was is a AK-47 style rifle with a scope, 2 backpacks which were hung on the fence that had ceramic tile in them, and a GoPro, which he was going to take pictures of. So those are being processed right now. The Secret Service agent that was on the course did a fantastic job. What they do is they have an agent that jumps one hole ahead of time to where the president was at. And he was able to spot this rifle barrel sticking out of the fence and immediately engage that individual, at which time the individual took off. So that's what we know about the investigation. We have somebody in custody right now that is a potential suspect. We got a little bit more work to do on it, but as we usually do, as soon as we decide that we're going to book him into the county jail and the charges that he's going to be booked into, we'll get those to you and we'll get a picture of him and we'll get you his background. So now I'm going to turn it over to the representative of the Secret Service, and he's going to make a brief statement.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I first want to thank all of our law enforcement partners, to include the Palm Beach Sheriff's Office and the Martin County Sheriff's Office, for their involvement today. Former President Donald Trump is safe and unharmed following a protective incident shortly before 2 p.m. on Sunday at Trump International Golf Club at West Palm Beach. The U.S. Secret Service personnel opened fire on a gunman located near the property line, and this matter is under investigation. I'll turn it over to my partners over at the FBI.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeffrey Veltri. I'm the special agent in charge of the FBI's Miami field office. The FBI has assumed the role as the lead federal law enforcement agency in the investigation of the incident that occurred earlier today at Trump International Golf Course here in West Palm Beach, Florida. We've deployed a number of resources, including investigative teams, crisis response team members, bomb technicians, and evidence response team members as well. What we need right now is for the public to avoid the area around the golf course. We will continue to support this investigation with the full resources of the FBI, alongside our partners with the United States Secret Service and the Palm Beach Sheriff's Office, as well as Martin County Sheriff's Office and state and local law enforcement. I would ask that if anyone has any information that may assist with this investigation, to contact our tip line at 1-800-CALL-FBI or at tips, that's TIPS .FBI.gov. Thank you.
David?
Hi, I'm Dave Ehrenberg, State Attorney for Palm Beach County. I want to thank Sheriff Bradshaw and our partners at the local, state, and federal levels. I'm here because our prosecutors are currently working up warrants and a motion for pretrial detention for the suspect. In that way, he will be kept in custody. But our filing of these warrants and charges at the state level does not preclude federal charges that could be coming. But in the meantime, it looks like the warrants and the pretrial detention motion will happen first. And again, I want to thank the cooperation we've had with our federal partners and at the local level. And thank you all for being here today.
Okay, we're going to make these pictures available to you. It'll show you a picture of the backpack and the rifle. And there's also a GoPro on the fence there where he was intent on filming what was going on. Even though we're going to have to secure a couple of areas around the golf course here, the public doesn't need to panic. We know that we got a post office, a library, and a school down the street. So we'll make it convenient for you to get to all the places you need to go, get your kids to school, get them over here to the post office or wherever else you need to go. It's safe. There's no more danger here, and we'll make it very convenient for you. So having said that, we're going to take a very limited amount of questions, and you can direct them to who you want to answer the question.
Sheriff, did this individual make any statements as he was being detained?
No statement right now as far as his involvement in the incident, and there's further investigation to be completed.
What was his demeanor like?
Yeah, I'm not sure if maybe the Secret Service gentleman answered. I misunderstood, or I couldn't quite understand. So there was a rifle. So one of your agents saw on the golf course saw a rifle pointing to a fence. Was it a chain link? Okay, so he saw that, the agent.
That is correct. Yes.
And the president or the former president was on the course behind him. How close?
It was 1 or 2 holes behind.
What is that?
That because the bubble moves through the golf course, so our agents will get there first, clear it. He noticed that the rifle was pointed out. Our agents engaged. We are not sure right now if the individual was able to take a shot at our agents, but for sure our agents were able to engage with the suspect. I don't know that.
Doesn't appear so.
Is there a moment?
Yep. Now,
how far away was the president? How far away was Donald Trump when this gentleman was caught and stopped?
Probably between 300 and 500 yards, but with a rifle and a scope like that, that's not a long distance.
For the Secret Service, how far was your agent from the would-be assailant?
That I'm not sure right now. We're still looking into it.
Reports of the 4 rounds of ammunition were fired. Were all 4 of those from your agent?
That is correct. 4 to 6. We're not sure yet.
Was there a long distance? Explaining why?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
WPF 25. I was wondering what how this was able to happen, and for future reference, is there any security in the golf course?
I didn't hear all that. Could say that one more time and talk up a little bit.
So how was this able to happen, and for future reference, is there any security in the golf course?
Well, you got to understand the golf course is surrounded by shrubbery. So when somebody gets into the shrubbery, they're pretty much out of sight. All right? And at this level that he is at right now, he's not the sitting president. If he was, we would have had this entire golf course around it. But because he's not, the security is limited to the areas that the Secret Service deems possible. So I would imagine that the next time he comes to the golf course, there'll probably be a little bit more people around the perimeter. But the Secret Service did exactly what they should have done. They provided exactly what the protection should have been, and their agent did a fantastic job.
Which direction was the shrubbery where he was? North, south? I guess east, west, and south is the road?
It's hard, the layout of the golf course, you've got 3 holes, 5, 6, and 7. All right? One of them runs parallel to Summit Boulevard. One of them runs parallel to Congress. And he was in an area in the shrubbery where he could see both holes. So the president was another hole back, which means he's about between 400 and 500 yards away.
So he was on the golf course?
Oh, he's on the golf course, yeah, but he's back a ways.
For the Secret Service, have you guys changed at all the way that you guys are protecting former President Donald Trump? This is now a potential second attempt on him. Can you just elaborate on how things have changed and what you make of all this?
Yes, the threat level is high. We have increased the amount of assets that we've supported, so we live in danger times. So yes.
Okay. We're done with questions right now. There's really nothing more for us to add. I just want to tell you, the Secret Service and the FBI and the State Attorney's Office have been fantastic to work with. And I can tell you right now, our agency with this real-time crime center was fabulous. That's how we got the guy. We started out with, we don't know anything, to where we had a tag, we had a vehicle description, and we got an area where we saw the person. So be proud of your law enforcement. All right, thanks, folks. We'll get back to you.
Where on 95 was it that...
Sheriff wants to show the what? Yeah, she'll get the photos to you.
What the sheriff's talking about. Between him and the
All right, so there you have it. That is a news conference from West Palm Beach, Florida. Federal, local, state officials, including the state's attorney who was there. Everybody was there. And there are some big headlines coming out of this. We have a team covering this with us, but just the big headlines. This was an assassination attempt, according to the FBI. That would be a second assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. They have a suspect in custody after they followed him in a car. They've taken that suspect into custody. The FBI is leading this investigation. And probably most important to the folks who live down there in that area, there is no threat to the public right now. They say there's a post office, a library, a school near this golf course. And he said they were saying you can feel safe taking your kids to these places. There is no threat, but this is yet a second assassination attempt against the former president. I want to bring in right now ABC News' Jack Date. Jack, everything we just heard, some really good detail from the federal officials down there. Tell us what we know at this hour.
It's a significant amount of information was just delivered at that press conference. The sheriff talking about how this whole incident sort of initiated. There's a report of shots fired around 1:30. They get information at the sheriff's office immediately because they're in communication with the Secret Service at that time. And it appears that the Secret Service fired upon an individual that was spotted at the tree line, at the fence line of the golf course where the president was playing golf. The Secret Service typically has an advance team that is moving ahead of him to make sure that the area is clear before he approaches it. And so it looks like that team did its job very well, that they saw a suspect, they saw a rifle poking through a fence line, they engaged the suspect fled. When that happened, a member of the public spotted somebody fleeing out of the tree line, heading into a black Nissan car, and that car took off. That bystander took a photograph of it and provided it to police. That was a key piece of information because it also contained a license plate that was visible. The police, the sheriff's office, along I-95 and other areas were able to enable their license plate readers. There's passive license plate detection systems that are able to look passively for this vehicle showing up. And it sure did show up on I-95 in the neighboring county in Martin County. Martin County was able to locate the vehicle, initiate a stop, and they were able to bring this person into custody. As the Secret Service and other agencies searched the woods, they found a rifle. It was an AK-47 with a scope attached to it. Very concerning. It's a high-powered rifle. The scope would provide an accuracy at distance. A very concerning finding there. They also found 2 backpacks. Inside the backpacks, at least in one of them, were ceramic tiles. It's unclear what the purpose was, whether this is a person who was seeking to shoot target practice or something. It's unclear what the purpose of those tiles was at this point in the investigation, but obviously authorities are looking into that. In addition to that, they have secured the individual. The FBI is now leading this investigation. As it pertains to people who are former presidents or candidates for president, there's a statute that triggers the FBI involvement, and they become in charge of the investigation when it involves such a person. In this case, it clearly does, or it appears to. The FBI a short time ago released a statement saying that they are investigating what appears to be an attempted assassination on former President Trump. So a ton of information in that press conference, very concerning developments, but the good news is the former president is safe, and the protective detail did its job, it appears, in this case.
Absolutely. And what strikes me, Jack, very different from the last time. We're going to talk a little bit about that. I want to bring John Santucci in on the phone now. John, you speak to the president and the president's camp frequently. How is the Trump family responding?
Well, shockingly, the fact that they've had to do this again. What I mean by that, I spoke to Donald Trump Jr., Phil, just a couple of moments ago, and he said to me the fact that he has had to have a conversation with his children again in just a matter of weeks of an assassination attempt on their grandfather is just unbelievable. Now, they're, of course, grateful that the former president is safe and Secret Service jumped into action there. But it is just this unbelievable reminder, Phil, of where we all were just 9 weeks ago with the assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania, with Donald Trump on the campaign trail there. Look, one of the things that I think is important for our viewers to understand is that, when we think about Palm Beach in Florida, we think of Donald Trump in Mar-a-Lago. This is a completely different facility. It's several miles away from Mar-a-Lago. Mar-a-Lago does not have a golf course, so Donald Trump, when he is home, does venture over to his West Palm Beach club to hit several rounds of golf. And that's exactly what he was doing today, Phil, with one of his most well-known donors. I think that the other thing we have to remember, too, is that we know security and the apparatus around former President Donald Trump has changed a lot in response to the Butler shooting. We know that if you venture down to Mar-a-Lago, to his residence, there's a bridge, Phil, that connects the main island to Donald Trump's private residence. And it's interesting, that's now blocked off. You can't get there. That actually, Phil, I know, because as you well know, I've covered Donald Trump for this network for nearly 10 years. It's a much more stringent security apparatus now in Palm Beach than it was when Donald Trump was in office. So I do think the big question that comes out of an incident like this is that, does Donald Trump's whole security posture have to change? Because as I just noted, this is another place that Donald Trump probably would figure is safe. He's there. He's there almost every day. And clearly, look what happened.
Yeah, John, good question. But we can see what happened today. The security apparatus worked appropriately. I want to bring in retired senior Secret Service agent Don Mihalik. And Don, I want you to talk about the interagency coordination here. But before you do, and this is probably standard operating procedure, but we, the public, we're learning about this now. You probably know about this. But the Secret Service agent who jumps one hole ahead of the president, that seems to be the head of the spear for the Secret Service on this particular operation. And that person is the one, that agent is the one who spotted the rifle, the barrel of rifle.
Yes, well, standard Secret Service protective methodology when it comes to golf courses, having an element that jumps ahead hole by hole to make sure they sweep and clear the golf course. Usually it's to deconflict other golfers, but it's also to search out threats. In this situation, that part of the protective methodology worked as designed, where the agent that was ahead of time identified the threat and was able to take actions and mitigate the threat before the president got to that hole. And it also gave the detailed time to react and protect the president, shield him, and evacuate him, which basically is exactly how that should work on a golf course, absent more resources being thrown on a golf course and shutting the golf course down. But overall, the federal, the state, the local agencies involved in this was a classic example of tremendous interagency coordination. From the minute the shots were fired to the information being put up by the Secret Service to the sheriff's offices, who are their counterparts down there, who were able to take that information, do a rapid investigation using technology, their real crime center, getting eyewitness information, a photo, a plate, running the plate, and then the tremendous advances of the license plate readers, the LPRs, which can passively identify and track cars. If you go to New York City today, once you enter New York City at the Holland or Lincoln Tunnel, your car is tracked throughout the entire city by just running a plate. So those advances in technology really were helpful with the investigation to get this resolved as quickly as it was. So tremendous compliments to the local, state, and federal officials down there. Now we'll see the charges filed by the state officials. And as the Attorney General said down there, that's not going to preclude the federal government, who will get a piece of this individual filing charges related to an attempted assassination against a former president.
Yeah, absolutely. ABC News' Luke Barr is with us as well. Luke, I want to talk a little bit about where this suspect was. We got some information. He was in the bushes near the course, but with the former president being one hole behind, he was pretty close. There was an AK-47 style rifle they said they found. Do we know anything more about this weapon at this point?
Well, Phil, what we know is that there was an AK-47 style rifle, which is sort of in the family of an automatic weapon. And what we do know, Phil, is that this individual allegedly had a backpack, and he also had a scope on that rifle. And as the sheriff down there, Rick Bradshaw, said, the alleged shooter was only 400 to 500 yards away, about a golf hole, he said, or two away from the former president. So look, Phil, this is really, as we get more details, this is really serious. And as the FBI said, this is an alleged assassination attempt that they're investigating.
Dawn, I want to bring you back in because one of the things that we learned from federal officials were that their estimate 400 to 500 yards the former president was away from where this gunman was. And they did point out specifically that this AK-47 style rifle had a scope on it. That rifle with a scope, 400 to 500 yards, as we've all learned now since the Butler shooting, is a makeable shot. So the president was in danger here.
Oh, absolutely. An AK-47 is the same weapon that was used against U.S. troops in Iraq and Afghanistan during those wars. It's the most common weapon found outside the United States. Its comparison in the U.S., the U.S.-made version would be an M4 or an M16. So it's a very deadly weapon, highly accurate in the right hands, out to 1,000 yards. Even at 500 yards, it's a shot that can be made with an AK-47. But because of the Secret Service's protective methodology, working as it should with the agent leaping ahead, identifying the threat, clearly the shooter did not have the opportunity to take the shot at President Trump because of that mitigation factor of the agent jumping ahead and identifying the threat. And from what the sheriff said, the president was off on another hole where the shooter did not have a direct line of sight. So as far as this particular incident, the protective methodology worked to keep the president safe, and the agents responded as they should.
Yeah, we're still unclear right now whether or not the suspect was able to get off a shot. They said they're not sure about that right now, but they do know for a fact that agent fired, and then they tell us the suspect dropped the gun and got into his car, and that's how they were able to get him. Jack, I want to ask you what this means about increased security moving forward, not just for Donald Trump, but the candidates involved in this campaign, but I guess specifically for Donald Trump because he's the one who has now been targeted twice, it looks like.
Well, we'll see how the Secret Service and other security agencies respond. But we're already seeing a heightened security level here in Washington. I just drove by the White House a short time ago. There's a massive presence of the Metropolitan Police Department with positions around the White House complex, with them out of their cars, lights on, and the streets around the White House. I'm told that's also the case around the Naval Observatory, which is a compound where the Vice President, Kamala Harris, and current candidate for president, lives. And both of them are, we're told, in Washington today. So we're already seeing heightened presence, and a law enforcement source tells me that is in relation to this incident in Florida. Clearly, the Secret Service did step up protection and did make some changes following the assassination attempt on July 13th. And they're clearly, there's really no expense being spared to try to protect the candidates, the former president, and anybody in their protection. But it is a complex environment, a complex threat environment, and it's only getting dicier as we move forward towards Election Day.
Yeah, and Luke, as Jack is talking about those protections, some of them we see, some of them we don't see, right? Since the Butler shooting, we have now seen bulletproof glass that Donald Trump speaks behind. Talk about the security measures that we've seen since then and what you think we are going to see now.
Presence on both the former president's detail, but also the vice president's detail, as she's the Democratic nominee. Look, the Secret Service wants to take no chances with their protection of these high-level individuals like the former president, like the vice president. And Phil, I think, it's worth noting that, when these individuals go out, the Secret Service has a huge apparatus that goes behind them. They have ambulances. They have a CAT team, which is sort of a response team that goes with these protectees. So there's just a robust level of protection, given the fact that the former president was attempted to be assassinated in Butler, and now it appears here, Phil.
Yeah, and Don, I want to bring you back in because we are told that a former president doesn't obviously get the level of security apparatus around them that a current president does, or even a vice president of the United States, right? So Donald Trump has had less security around him than when he was president. Do you think that kind of policy will change now that a former president has been the target of one assassination attempt and then a presumed assassination attempt here?
So, you know, the Secret Service runs its protection on threats and threat-based. Clearly, former President Trump with 2 assassination attempts, his threats have gone up exponentially. But for the Secret Service, really, they've dumped a tremendous amount of resources to both former President Trump and VP Harris's candidates post July 13th assassination attempt. With this, though, the only place for the Secret Service to go is up to what they're doing for the sitting president, which would mean there would be a tremendous amount of resources put to each candidate by the Secret Service.
All right, Don, thank you very much. And thank you to our entire team covering this breaking news right now. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with the latest on what the FBI is now calling a possible attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump. Stay with us.
Where are we going next? We got this ongoing search for the animal we've been trying to find.
These are the last lands. The national parks around the world that have to be saved.
There.
Let's go.
The ship is incredible. It feels like living in a science fiction movie.
We just saw what no one has seen before.
Wow, look at that.
Oh my gosh.
Well, dead ahead. Hang on!
We are heading into the unknown.
Hammer, hammer, hammer. It doesn't get any more cutting edge than this.
With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any other newscast. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir, America's #1 most watched newscast across all of television.
First thing in the morning.
There's a lot going on.
We're still in a flash flood warning. To catch you up with what happened overnight. Clashing over national security.
What's happening today? Tensions in the Middle East.
What people are talking about. The worries on Wall Street.
Fast, straightforward.
With some fun in between. Catching up on sleep during the weekend could be good for your heart.
Non-alcoholic bars are popping up in a growing number of cities. That's the spirit.
America This Morning.
America's #1 early morning news.
On ABC News Live.
With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any other newscast. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir, America's #1 most watched newscast across all of television. What does it take to be the most watched newscast in America?
We are part of an operation.
Is this our combat operations center?
We're approaching the gate. Militants came in from different directions. Nuclear reactor. So you have a couple loaded and ready to go. The house is destroyed, but the flag not a tear in it. How important it made to USA. Great work.
Hi.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
Ismail? David.
I'm David Muir.
I know who you are.
You
Watch
do?
you every night.
ABC's World News Tonight with David Muir is America's most watched newscast. Whenever news breaks,
We are here in Israel, a nation at war.
In Rolling Fork, this tornado tore through this town.
From Lewiston, Maine.
The scene of a horrific mass shooting.
from the scene of that deadly missile strike, ABC News Live everywhere.
In Iceland, let's go.
On the 2024 campaign trail.
Here at 10 Downing Street.
Wherever the story is.
We're going to take you there.
You're streaming ABC News Live.
ABC News Live.
You're streaming ABC News Live.
ABC News Live, streaming free everywhere.
Whenever, wherever news breaks, it's so important to always remember that lives are changed. Here in London, in Buffalo, Uvalde, Texas, Edinburgh, Scotland. Reporting from Rolling Fork, Mississippi. Ukrainian refugees here in Warsaw. We're heading to a small community outside of Mexico City. Getting you behind the stories as they happen. ABC News Live Prime. We'll take you there.
Stream ABC News Live weeknights wherever you stream your news. Only on ABC News Live.
Here's to good mornings in America.
Can you feel the love?
Oh, yeah.
Mornings that inspire, filled with hope, kindness, joyous surprises, and so much fun.
This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy.
Start your day with Good Morning America's ray of sunshine, highlighting the best of America and helping
Make dreams come true. Wow. I'm just so happy. It's so good.
get ready to smile and put the good into your morning, America, because
You know what will make the morning better? A little ray of sunshine.
It's lunchtime in America.
Yeah, so what are we serving up?
Well, how about everything you need to know?
Give it to me. Your health, your money, breaking news, pop culture, with the biggest stars, music, trends, and of course, good food.
It's all coming up on GMA3.
You're going to love it. We'll see you then.
GMA3, what you need to know. A third hour of GMA in the afternoon.
So join us, afternoons.
For everything you need to know.
I love
Give
that.
it to
Me
me.
too.
Good evening, I'm Phil Lipoff. We are going to begin with breaking news, a story that we have been following now as it breaks. The FBI is now investigating a shooting in West Palm Beach, Florida, as a possible attempted assassination against former President Donald Trump. Law enforcement officials now confirming they arrested an armed suspect near a golf course used by Trump. His campaign says he is safe and well, and that is important to tell you right up at the top. You are taking a live look now at images of a car stopped by Martin County Sheriff's Office, which stopped that vehicle and took a suspect into custody believed to be connected to the shooting incident at Trump International in Palm Beach County. A senior law enforcement official tells ABC News that a suspect with a high-powered rifle and a scope on it was spotted in the area of his golf course in West Palm Beach, Florida. We are told Secret Service opened fire on that suspect after seeing the rifle. Investigators say they are still trying to determine a motive here. Just 2 months ago, you know that Trump was shot during an assassination attempt at a rally in Pennsylvania where that bullet grazed his ear. You can see the blood there coming off of his face, Secret Service around him. We have a team covering this for us right now. We're going to start with ABC News' Jack Date. Jack, we got a lot of information from federal, local, state officials. Run us through what we know right now.
Right, so what we've been told so far is that when police got the report, local police got the report from the Secret Service around 1:30 p.m. that shots had been fired in the vicinity of the golf course where President Trump was playing golf at West Palm, Florida. And so this immediately set in chain a bunch of actions by local law enforcement to make sure that they were very much on alert. So their units were on alert outside the area, trying to lock that area down and freeze it. So what happened immediately afterwards, a bystander sees a person coming out of the tree line near where this person was sighted and that the Secret Service had fired upon because he appeared to have a high-powered rifle. They saw a rifle poking out of the fence line and fired upon him. So this person fled. A bystander saw this person fleeing, saw him get into a black Nissan vehicle and take off. That bystander took a picture of this car and that captured the license plate number. They passed that information on to police. Police put that information in their license plate reader system. They're able to find the car on I-95 at the next county over in Martin County. They notified officials there. Those officials were able to quickly locate that vehicle. They were able to pin it in and safely take that person into custody. And that person is now sitting in Martin County in custody, and that scene is being processed with the vehicle taken into custody as well. That will be taken over to the FBI. But a tremendous amount of information was found in the woods as the Secret Service and other investigators searched. They found a rifle, a high-powered rifle, an AK-47, it would appear, with a scope on it. Very concerning that a rifle of that sort with a scope on it, which would give it accuracy at distance, was found in the wood lines in the tree area around where the former president was playing golf. Also, he was spotted by the Secret Service. It would appear that Secret Service agents who were running security for the president's detail, or former president's detail, his security detail, as he was playing golf, they were in advance of him as he was approaching that hole or that area. They were clearing the area. They spotted him. They fired upon him, engaged him before he fled. So it appears that in terms of the Secret Service procedures, they found the threat and engaged the threat, and that person fled. That person's in custody now. Warrants are being pursued and to search his car and other things associated with him. Right now, those are local warrants, but the FBI is in charge of this investigation now, as we heard in the press conference. They'll be taking over, and there could very likely be federal charges as well. Nothing that happens at the local level will preclude that. But because it involves former President Trump by statute, the FBI is very much in charge of this investigation. They're responding with all kinds of assets, evidence response team, crisis teams, and other investigative resources to make sure that they can gather any other evidence that's available. Investigators also found 2 backpacks at the scene near the fence line. Along the fence, they found one of the backpacks at least was loaded with ceramic tiles. It's unclear what the purpose of those tiles was, but that's something that investigators are clearly trying to run down and understand better.
Yeah, and they talked about this GoPro being ready to perhaps video what was about to happen. But I want to bring in retired senior Secret Service agent Don Mihalik again. Don, this is so polar opposite of the response that we saw in Butler, Pennsylvania. That, by all accounts, was a tremendous security failure. Someone with that kind of high-powered rifle that close to the president, able to get a shot off. This response is completely different. And talk to us first about that Secret Service protocol on a golf course where an agent jumps ahead, like one hole ahead of who they're protecting. But also the interagency coordination here was just tremendous, was it not?
Yeah, Phil. So Secret Service standard protective methodology on golf courses is to have agents positioned ahead, behind, and of course with the protectee, because you can't shut down an entire golf course. In this instance, the agents and a team were probably leaping ahead to the next hole, were observing what's going on, and then identified this threat, saw the rifle, identified the threat, engaged the threat, and mitigated the threat, which also gave the Secret Service detail that was with President Trump time to cover and evacuate him and get him out of harm's way. So as far as Secret Service protective methodology goes, it seems like this was the example of it working the way it should. And then from there, we see the communication with local law enforcement, which down in Mar-a-Lago, I would envision the Secret Service routinely working with the local sheriff's departments down there because of the former president's residence there. That information from the Secret Service went to the sheriff's department, who then put it out broadly through their information center down there. They did a rapid investigation. They found an eyewitness who had a photograph of a car and of a license plate. They're able to put that into their license plate readers, which are tremendous technological assets that law enforcement around the country are using that can passively track and identify vehicles based upon simply a plate number. If you go into New York City today at one of the tunnels, your plate gets registered. They can track you throughout the entire city based upon your license plate and tell you everywhere we go. That then culminated in the capture of the suspect, who was brought in by the local authorities. Again, now the FBI and the Secret Service will come in and interview the suspect, determine what his motives are, what he was intending to do. The state will press their charges, but which doesn't preclude the federal officials from pushing their charges, which in this case will be attempted assassination of the former president. All in all, tremendous coordination of the federal, state, and local officials on this case.
Yeah, ABC's Luke Barr is with us as well. Luke, the federal officials there tell us that an AK-47 was found with a scope on it, which makes that particular rifle a whole lot scarier when it's got a scope. It can, the shot can be made from a distance of more than 1,000 yards. What do we know about that particular gun and where the suspect was when Secret Service, the agent for the Secret Service, said they started firing on him?
Yeah, so what we do know, Phil, is that the sheriff down there in Palm Beach County had said that the agent did some sort of advance work. The former president was on the hole behind where the gunman was, and the agent walked ahead, saw him, and that, Phil, was about 400 to 500 feet away, he said. And Phil, he also said that that suspect had that scope on him, which is a semi-automatic weapon that greatly enhances the accuracy of any shot from that distance away. And Phil, we also know that the suspect had some tiles, ceramic tiles, and a GoPro, he said, the sheriff said, to film what happened. But there's a lot of unanswered questions, Phil, about the motive and sort of who this person actually is.
And Don, just talk to us a little bit more about the weapon and the gun's ability to fire at such a great distance, especially with a scope, and that particular AK-47 style semi-automatic.
Yeah, so the AK-47 is an assault rifle. That's the most prolific assault rifle outside of the United States for non-NATO countries. Made generally in the Soviet Union and China, were used against U.S. troops in Iraq and Afghanistan, have a tremendous range out to 1,000 yards and beyond with a scope on it, very simple and easy to use, possesses a significant long-distance threat. And what we had here was the agent who was leaping ahead on the golf course, identified the threat, saw the barrel of the rifle, and then engaged the threat, most likely with the agent's sidearm, which is a handgun that the Secret Service carries. It's a Glock right now, 9mm. So you have a handgun against a rifle, which drove the individual off. So that way the Secret Service detail can respond, protect the president, and then we have the rest of the story. What's interesting to me is the GoPro and the fact that this individual had a backpack with ceramic plates, which to me, ceramic plates typically are a form of body armor for high velocity ammunition used worn by U.S. troops traditionally. And the GoPro is probably there to film whatever this individual is trying to do. So very dangerous situation, very dangerous individual, tremendous coordinated response by the Secret Service and the local officials to find and identify and apprehend this individual, and success on a protective methodology, 180 from what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and Don, I just want to talk a little bit more about this gun, because you don't have to be a sharpshooter. You don't have to be, you know, a military-grade sharpshooter to use this weapon and shoot something at a long distance, especially with a scope. I mean, you obviously have to know how to use the gun, but sort of someone who has some knowledge of shooting rifles can do some real damage with this particular gun at this distance that we were talking about.
Yeah, that's why the AK-47 is the most prolific rifle outside the United States, because of its ease of use, and why the Soviet Union and both the Chinese have used this weapon for decades as their weapon of choice for their military branches, and why the terrorists in Iraq and Afghanistan, of course, were able to hand this weapon out to all sorts of individuals to use to attack U.S. troops. It's a very easy weapon to use. If you put a scope on it, it makes it even easier to target with the weapon. It doesn't take a sniper or sharpshooter to use these types of weapons. But most rifles are made to be easy to shoot, whether it's the M4, the M16, an AK-47, or a hunting rifle, because gun companies put a lot of work into developing these weapons, and they want the individual shooting it to be able to shoot and shoot accurately. So the fact that he had an AK-47 may have just been the type of rifle he had. I don't think it's a commentary on his accuracy or not, but more along the lines of it was probably the weapon he was able to access and the weapon he brought to try to assassinate former President Trump.
ABC News Chief Washington correspondent Jonathan Karl is joining us as well now. John, it's amazing that we're here talking about this again. It's unbelievable. How is the Trump campaign responding so far today?
Well, we just heard from J.D. Vance, obviously Donald Trump's running mate, who has put out a statement saying, and I'll read it to you, "I'm glad President Trump is safe. I spoke to him before the news was public, and he was amazingly in good spirits. Still much we don't know, but I'll be hugging my kids extra tight tonight and saying a prayer of gratitude." We've also heard from Donald Trump Jr., who said that his father is doing fine. Those were Donald Trump Jr.'s words, but he was saying it's unbelievable that he has to talk to his children once again about a potential assassination attempt. So that's what we have heard so far. We've also heard from various Trump allies who have described the former president as being back at Mar-a-Lago and being in good spirits, just as J.D. Vance has said. And I also spoke just recently with a former member of the president's Secret Service detail when he was in the White House, who was pointing out to me just how difficult it is to secure that particular area, that golf course, Trump International in West Palm Beach, which is the place that he plays most often when he is in Mar-a-Lago. This former agent said that if the Secret Service had not spotted that barrel of the rifle gun through the fence, that this attempted assassin would have had what this former agent told me would have been an unfettered shot, and that depending on on aim, depending on line of sight, that this would have been quite likely to have been a successful assassination attempt, which underscores, obviously, the incredible importance of that Secret Service protection.
Yeah, and John, the Secret Service is only able to do what they can do. It worked. That agent who was leapfrogging, hole to hole, saw this rifle and took a couple shots, which was enough to sort of scare this person off. That's what they're telling us. But the Secret Service, it's harder to protect the former president on a golf course than it is, say, at Mar-a-Lago. Mar-a-Lago has become, like a fortress, right?
Right. A golf course, I mean, people are playing golf. Also, you have, this is a golf course, Trump International in West Palm, that is in a populated area. There are busy roads that are not that far from the golf course. This former agent said, looking at where this was, it is highly likely that this attempted assassin could have been within 100 yards, less than 100 yards away from where the president would have been going by to play golf. Now, you know how they do this. You heard some of the description in the press conference with the police, the FBI, and the Secret Service. They go and they attempt to sweep the area in front of where he is playing and the area behind. So you have Secret Service details and law enforcement jumping ahead 1-2 holes from where the president is playing, and also keeping the area secure behind. But it is a challenge, especially a golf course in a relatively urban area. And another factor this former agent pointed out, if you want to think about this, Phil, it's quite amazing. This is not what happened in this case, but a long metallic object. Where's a great place to hide a long metallic object? A golf bag, which is designed to carry long metallic objects. So this is something that keeps Secret Service up at night. Something that, and obviously, Donald Trump is only the latest in a long line of presidents that play golf and play golf all the time. What's a little different about Donald Trump is that he plays primarily at his own golf courses, which are in areas that are not necessarily as easy to secure. I covered President Obama as well. He played a lot of golf. He frequently played on golf courses that were actually on military bases, such as Joint Base Andrews, which has a golf course that he played very regularly. That's obviously a much easier place to secure than something in the middle of West Palm Beach.
Yeah, and for this agent to see the barrel of a rifle,
I mean, it's amazing, yes,
coming through the bushes is just, thank heaven he did. John, stand by. I want to bring in Chief Justice Correspondent Pierre Thomas. Pierre, I've been getting your emails, your sources you are talking to. Take us through everything we know right now, because we got a treasure trove of information from federal authorities just a short time ago in that news conference.
Well, sometime around 2 p.m., Secret Service personnel doing their job apparently noticed this suspect with what appeared to be a rifle aiming it. And sources are saying, and as we learned from the press conference, that law enforcement, Secret Service, fired in the direction of the suspect. They took no chances. They fired in that person's direction. The suspect fled the scene, apparently dropped the rifle. According to my sources and what we learned at the press conference, a suspect was then detained on a nearby highway. Officials strongly suspected this is the man that had that weapon. They're double-checking, triple-checking that. They have a name that they're working with. We're not quite ready to report that until it's confirmed that this is, in fact, the person who had the rifle in the woods near the golf course. But right now, there's an intensive, massive effort underway to look into the background of this person that's into custody, find out what the social media footprint is, find out if the person has any criminal record, try to get some sense of why that person would have been there with an assault rifle, aiming it in the direction of where he thought perhaps the president was going to be, former president was going to be.
Yeah, motive is certainly going to be something that they are searching for now. Pierre, thank you. Don, I want to bring you back in. And if you can, let's talk a little bit more about what Jonathan Karl was just talking about. He had spoken to a former Secret Service agent as well, talking about how difficult it is to protect anyone on a golf course, even one of the golf courses that John was talking about on a military base, because there's so much open space.
Yeah, I think Jonathan Karl and I bumped into each other on some of President Obama's golf outings when we used to take him to Andrews and to Fort Belvoir to play golf. It is one of the more difficult protective environments to have protection in because of the openness, the uniqueness of a golf course being used by other people, the fact that you can't close down a golf course even on a military base. So the Secret Service methodology generally is, as we've discussed, they have an element in front, an element behind it, an element with the president, and normally that element is moving along the golf course with the president ahead, behind, and with him to make sure that things are secure, things are checked, things are swept. In the case of what happened here, the element in front clearly was paying attention, was on point, saw the threat, took immediate action to stop the threat, and then, of course, was communicating that threat to the detail that was with former President Trump, and that detail was able to cover and evacuate Trump to make sure he remained safe and nothing happened to him. Again, a tremendous success of the Secret Service protective methodology and tremendous observation skills of the agents that were ahead on the golf course that were paying attention as they should have.
Yeah, I mean, you think standard operating procedure is put in place for a reason. It worked remarkably well in this case. Don, thank you. Luke, I want to bring you back in and talk about the increased security that we have seen around presidential candidates, specifically since the shooting, the assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania at former President Trump's rally. Now we're seeing him speak behind bulletproof glass. This is going to be the new normal, it seems.
Yeah, Phil, it is going to be the new normal, at least going forward through this election cycle. You know, you mentioned bulletproof glass on both candidates, both Vice President Harris and former President Donald Trump are behind that bulletproof glass for outdoor rallies. Indoor rallies are a little bit easier to secure. You know, the Secret Service sometimes prefers them to outdoor rallies. We're also seeing an increase in personnel. The former president has had some threats from Iran, generic threats that have been concerning. So even before Butler, his security was increased by the service. So there's a whole host of threats in this evolving environment that the Secret Service has to deal with. And there's going to be a large number of agents and personnel that are going to be deployed even more so now on the former president's detail because of this incident.
And Pierre, we are obviously in an elevated threat environment since Butler. What does this mean for the campaigns and where they are able to go? Will this change anything that the campaigns want to do moving forward? And what kind of environment are we really looking at right now?
Well, Phil, even before the attempted assassination plot in Butler, Pennsylvania, the FBI director and also the Attorney General have been warning about the elevated threat environment. And what do I mean by that? Since October and the attack against Israel involving Hamas, law enforcement officials have been describing perhaps the most challenging threat environments since 9/11. Every threat sector, I'm being told by sources, from domestic terrorism to concerns about the resurgence in ISIS and Al-Qaeda, have been high tempo. And so law enforcement had already been responding to that. Add to that, the Attorney General talking about a pretty big, significant surge in threats of political violence. So that's the environment that we find ourselves in even before the attempted assassination plot on former President Trump in Pennsylvania. And my sources said that attempt simply confirmed what they already knew, that we are in a particularly dangerous moment, particularly leading up until the election, and law enforcement knows that they have to respond. And again, this incident today is only going to heighten their concerns and hopefully their resolve.
Absolutely heightened. Both of them reinforce what they saw and learned after Butler. Pierre, thank you. Dawn, I want to ask you one more question because I want to talk about what this person, federal officials say, was found with. The two backpacks, one, filled with the tiles, and a GoPro. What does it say about, we don't really know what this person was capable of, but his capabilities because of what he had, and what does it say to you about the profile of this suspect?
So in 1997, the Secret Service did a study about assassins and attempted assassins called the Exceptional Case Study. In that, they identified different traits of an assassin. One of the glaring things is an unusual direction of interest towards an individual or a specific subject. In this case, this individual was at the golf course with a rifle. The ceramic plates sound to me like they were potentially body armor, and the GoPro sounds to me like he was recording it. So it seems like he was there with an unusual direction of interest towards President Trump, and his recording of it was a way to basically inflate himself or show off that he committed this act and capture it for all history, which is sort of a sick state of mind if you think about it, versus the Butler assassin, who seemed in his profile to be straddling more of the school shooter assassin. And based upon what we know of him, he was trying to find some place to commit an act of mass violence. And he settled on the Trump rally versus some of the other places he was looking at.
Right. Both profiles equally as dangerous. Dawn, thank you so much, and thank you to our entire team covering the breaking news right now. We are going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after the break with what the FBI is now calling an attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump. We'll be right back.
ABC News Live, honored with 8 Emmy nominations, more than any other streaming news network. And ABC News Live Prime with Linsey Davis, the first and only streaming show nominated for Best Outstanding Live News Program. This is ABC News Live. With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any other newscast. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir, America's #1 most watched newscast across all of television.
Where are we going next? We got this ongoing search for the animal we've been trying to find.
These are the last lands. The national parks around the world that have to be saved.
There.
Betrayal is one of the hardest types of trauma to overcome.
This is her knight in shining armor.
Everything felt right. All of a sudden, I found this hidden folder. I opened it. I don't think I can say it. I'm sorry. It's shocking. My stomach just dropped. He just really didn't think I had it in me to do something. So I did.
Betrayal, A Father's Secret, the all-new season on Hulu.
The question is, why was Matthew Perry doing ketamine? How did he get it, and who is to blame for his death?
In the case of Matthew Perry, it was kind of the perfect storm.
In September and October 2023, he was getting 6 to 8 shots of ketamine a day.
5 people, including 2 doctors, all arrested.
Matthew Perry was a money stream for everybody involved.
It is very odd to live in a world where if you died, it would shock people, but surprise no one.
What happened to Matthew Perry, now streaming on Hulu.
Here's to Good Mornings in America.
Can you feel the love? Oh, yeah.
Mornings that inspire, filled with hope, kindness, joyous surprises, and so much fun.
This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy.
Start your day with Good Morning America's Ray of Sunshine, highlighting the best of America and helping
make dreams come true. Wow. I'm just so happy. It is so good.
Get ready to smile and put the good into your morning, America, because
you know what will make the morning better? A little ray of sunshine.
Why do so many people start their day here?
From ABC News, this is Start Here.
To be in the know and get a different take on the day's top stories.
A lot of news today, so let's get into it.
Listen now to the Daily News Podcast honored with 4 Edward R. Murrow Awards and see why the New York Times calls it a news podcast worth listening to. Start Here, ABC News. Make it your daily first listen.
Now, that's a part of the story I bet you didn't see coming.
Wherever you get your podcasts, start here.
First thing in the morning.
There's a lot going on.
We're still in a flash flood warning. To catch you up with what happened overnight. Clashing over national security.
What's happening today? Tensions in the Middle East.
What people are talking about. The worries on Wall Street.
Fast, straightforward.
With some fun in between. Catching up on sleep during the weekend could be good for your heart.
Non-alcoholic bars are popping up in a growing number of cities. That's the spirit.
America This Morning.
America's #1 early morning news.
On ABC News Live.
What does it take to be the most watched newscast in America?
We are part of an operation.
Is this our combat operations center?
We're approaching the gate. Militants came in from different directions. Nuclear reactor. So you have a couple loaded and ready to go. The house is destroyed, but the flag.
Not a tear in it.
How important it made to USA. Great work.
Hi. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Ismail? David.
I'm David Muir.
I know who you are.
You
Watch
do?
you every night.
ABC's World News Tonight with David Muir is America's most watched newscast.
It's lunchtime in America, so what are we serving up?
Well, how about everything you need to know?
Your health, your money, breaking news, pop culture, with the biggest stars, music, trends, and of course, good food.
It's all coming up on GMA3.
You're going to love it. We'll see you then.
GMA3, what you need to know. A third hour of GMA in the afternoon.
So join us. Afternoons.
For everything you need to know.
I love that.
Me too.
Whenever news breaks,
We are here in Israel, a nation at war.
In Rolling Fork, this tornado tore through this town.
From Lewiston, Maine.
The scene of a horrific mass shooting.
From the scene of that deadly missile strike.
ABC News Live everywhere.
In Iceland, let's go.
On the 2024 campaign trail.
Here at 10 Downing Street.
Wherever the story is.
We're going to take you there.
You're streaming ABC News Live.
ABC News Live.
You're streaming ABC News Live.
ABC News Live, streaming free everywhere.
I'm Faith Abube in Jamaica, reporting on Hurricane Beryl as the historic and deadly storm roars through the Caribbean. You're streaming ABC News Live.
Good evening, I'm Phil Lipoff. We begin with breaking news right now. An apparent second assassination attempt on former President Trump. Here is what we know right now. The former president is safe and unharmed. That is important, and there does not appear to be any threat to the area there in West Palm Beach, Florida. That is what the sheriff tells us. The incident happened while the former president was golfing on his course in West Palm Beach, Florida. Law enforcement officials now confirming they arrested a suspect near the golf course. His campaign says he is safe. Again, that is important. You are taking a look at images of a car stopped by the Martin County Sheriff's Office. Well, this is the motorcade actually heading to Mar-a-Lago, I believe, right after the shooting. These are images that the Sheriff's Department gave us, put it on Facebook, of the car that was stopped, the vehicle. They took a suspect into custody, believed to be connected with the shooting incident at the golf course. A senior law enforcement official tells ABC News that a suspect with a high-powered rifle and a scope was spotted in the area of the golf course. We are told Secret Service opened fire on that suspect when they saw the barrel of a rifle. Investigators say they are still trying to determine a motive here, so the investigation is underway. But you will recall just 2 months ago, Trump was shot during an assassination attempt at a rally he was having in Pennsylvania, where a bullet then grazed his ear. You can see the blood coming off of his face there. We have team coverage of this event right now, this breaking news situation. We want to bring in ABC News Chief Justice Correspondent Pierre Thomas first. Pierre, you've been talking to your sources since the minute these shots were fired down at the golf course. What can you tell us at this hour?
Incredibly dangerous situation, Phil. Sources telling me and confirmed at the press conference that Secret Service personnel, was monitoring the situation as former President Trump was golfing. and they noticed someone with what appeared to be an assault rifle. They didn't take any chances. They started firing shots in the direction of what appeared to be that rifle. We're told that the suspect dropped the rifle and fled. A short time later, local police were able to pull over a car with a man that they have now detained. A deep, intensive investigation is underway into that man's name, background, his social media footprint, whether he has any criminal record. They want to know what was he doing in those woods, what were his intentions. That investigation is ongoing. But again, incredibly dangerous situation coming, just weeks, quite frankly, after the July attempt at Butler, Pennsylvania. And so now, for the second time in 3 months, someone apparently with an assault-style rifle in the vicinity of former President Trump with apparently bad intentions.
It is remarkable. I want to bring in ABC News Chief Washington correspondent Jonathan Karl. Jonathan, you think about the environment, the political and threat environment we are in right now. We began this just one day, talking about the unfounded, debunked allegations, racist allegations that Haitian immigrants were eating pets in Ohio. That's how this day began, and it ends now with an apparent second assassination attempt against Donald Trump.
It's remarkable, and we'll learn more about just how serious this attempt was, but it sure seems like it was a very serious attempt. I just heard from one law enforcement source who has been briefed on this, who said that the former president was only about 400 yards away when this attempted assassin or apparent attempted assassin was spotted. The effective range of an AK-47, I am told, is about 300 yards, and obviously this was he was seen as they were doing that process of sweeping the holes ahead of where the president would be going. We've been told he was on the 5th hole of that golf course. So this, if the Secret Service had not spotted that muzzle, and think about that, spotting apparently the muzzle of the weapon through a leafy area and a fence, pretty amazing to think about what might have happened here and how close something far more serious could have happened.
And thank heaven it didn't, because we saw something like that in Butler, Pennsylvania, and the Secret Service reacting this time. I want to bring in Jay O'Brien. Jay, you know this area well. You've worked in West Palm Beach for a long time, so you know what kind of detail is down there with both the former president and just when anybody is down there with security. What can you tell us about that area and how they secure it?
Well, it's important to remember, Phil, that this is not Mar-a-Lago. When you think about Donald Trump in South Florida, you think about Donald Trump being at Mar-a-Lago, his private club, which is on an island, Palm Beach. His golf course, there is no golf course attached to Mar-a-Lago. It's the place he plays golf every single time he's down there, typically, is what's called Trump International. That's in West Palm Beach. It's across the bridge from Mar-a-Lago. He has to drive in a motorcade to get there, and that's why you've seen those images, for example, of the motorcade going back over the bridge after this incident to get Trump back to his club. And the reason why it's important to remember that is that this golf course is in, as you're seeing on your map there, a part of the city of West Palm Beach. It's not far from the airport. There's a library across the street from it. There's gas stations. There's a Dunkin' Donuts near there, and the list goes on. It's in a populated area that in large part is accessible to the public. And one of the things I've spoken to law enforcement sources down there in the immediate aftermath of this event that sticks out to them is that this suspect, police say, was in the bushes, in the shrubbery and the fence line that essentially juts up right up against the golf course. And that, sources tell me, has been a problem that law enforcement has encountered when it comes to securing that golf course for quite some time. Photographers, sometimes, they're not supposed to be there. The police usually tries to clear you out if Trump is there and playing golf, but photographers have been there in some instances, snapping pictures and video of Trump playing golf, and the police have tried to usher them away when they can. But that is largely, oftentimes, been an unsecure area because while it's within the perimeter that law enforcement keeps an eye on, it's not within the immediate perimeter that surrounds Donald Trump when he plays golf. That perimeter, in a way, law enforcement sources tell me, travels with Trump as he goes from hole to hole. That's another thing to keep in mind here, is that advance team that was out ahead of Trump as he was going from hole to hole, they are the ones, as we've heard repeated over the course of this broadcast, who noted this individual, saw him at the fence line and engaged with him. But point being, this area where this shooter was, law enforcement sources in the Palm Beach County area tell me, has long been a concern of theirs because of how close someone could get to the former president when he was playing golf.
And because of how populated it is, you heard the sheriff, Jay, make it a point to say there is a post office, there's a library, there is a school. It is safe. We believe the threat is over. It was really important for him to get that point across. Pierre, I want to talk about the elevated threat environment we are now in, obviously. And this precedes the first assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania, right? We've been in this elevated threat now for quite some time, and then you have Butler and then this incident today.
Well, this is being described as perhaps the most dangerous threat environment that we've seen since 9/11, and really since October 7th of last year, when Hamas conducted those horrible attacks against Israel and its people. Law enforcement officials have been saying that virtually every sector of the threat environment is on fire, from domestic terrorists to people, white supremacists, to a resurgence of Al-Qaeda and ISIS, and a massive surge, they say, in threats of political violence. So that was all on the table before the assassination attempt in Butler in July. So law enforcement officials now, literally, their hair has been on fire. They've been super concerned. And a lot of them said that the incident at Butler, Pennsylvania, confirmed that they were on the right track, that their concerns were warranted. And now, with this incident today, law enforcement, I can't tell you, they're emphasizing that they're treating this with the utmost seriousness. And I do think that going forward, the rhetoric that everyone is spouting, law enforcement is, at least to me, encouraging people to tamp it down because they've got a job to do. It is increasingly difficult by the day.
Absolutely is. Pierre, thank you. ABC News' Jack Date is here as well. And Jack, you're following some of the security protocol that we've seen even before Butler, but after the shooting in Pennsylvania, we now see the candidates behind bulletproof glass. What else are we going to see moving forward?
Yes, steps were taken to try to step up security after the incident in Butler, obviously, and that continues. The Secret Service is taking every measure they can to protect their protectees, these candidates in particular right now, as they are making all kinds of public events. These are very public people, and they necessarily need to interact. But it's a very complicated threat environment, as Pierre just talked about, and it is a very complex process to try to keep these individuals protected, and they're doing everything they can. And in fact, we saw some immediate response actually this afternoon in the immediate aftermath of the incident in Florida. We saw an increased police presence around the White House complex here in Washington, around the Naval Observatory in Washington as well, where the vice president resides. Both of them, we're told, are in town. And Metropolitan Police Department of Washington had taken up positions, very visible positions around the streets surrounding those immediate areas. And we're told that by a law enforcement source that was very much in reaction to what happened down in Florida. And, we're bound to see a very visible presence wherever these candidates appear, and that's expected to continue at least through the election. But again, it's an extremely complicated threat environment. From the entire spectrum, as Pierre noted, is lit up basically with concerning information, and so the Secret Service and their partners are going to have to process that and take steps accordingly. And as we saw, there was an enormous amount of coordination in Florida with agencies there. They were aware. They had communications with the Secret Service. Of course, former President Trump lives in that area, so that relationship is very well established, and they're very accustomed to working together. But as these candidates move around the country, they're going to have to make sure that they have appropriate advance to make sure that they have communication with the locals so that they can react and respond quickly to threats as they emerge.
And they seem to be emerging more frequently now. White House correspondent Mary Alice Parks joins me now. Mary Alice, I understand both President Biden and the Harris campaign were not only briefed on this, but have reacted to it. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, the White House saying that both President Biden and Vice President Harris were briefed on this situation, that they both were relieved to hear, of course, that the former president was okay and was safe. They're going to continue to get updates on this incident throughout the day. You know, the Vice President herself, more in a campaign capacity, I guess, put out her own statement, sort of summarizing that, but adding violence has no place in America. Her running mate, Tim Walz, also put out a statement saying this is not who we are. So far, White House staff here directing all questions about the investigation, about what exactly happened to local law enforcement and Secret Service. You know, like Jack was just talking about, we can feel here at the White House a heightened security presence. Lafayette Park, right in front of the White House, is closed to the public. There's noticeably more Secret Service agents there around sort of the perimeter of the White House, as well as local police. You know, after that assassination attempt against Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania, of course, the Secret Service director, Kim Cheadle, resigned. There is just an acting director of Secret Service in place right now. You know, the White House very aware, like Jack was just talking about, of this heightened threat environment around this election. It is something that has been a cause of concern since the beginning of this election season. This moment feels very volatile. This White House talks about it often, talks about trying to find a way to lower the political rhetoric, to find a way to make sure that all candidates are talking about how violence or any threats of violence are absolutely unacceptable and have no place in American politics. It's something we hear from this president and from White House staff very often. And they're very aware that this will continue, and the concerns around keeping candidates safe, of course, around keeping all former presidents safe, will continue to be sort of at the forefront and the absolute priority of law enforcement between now and the election and going forward, of course, Phil.
Jonathan Karl is still with us. Jonathan, the sheer grandeur of it all moving forward, what the Secret Service has to do, who they have to protect as this campaign moves forward. How difficult is the challenge for the Secret Service? I mean, clearly we saw the failure of a security plan really in Butler. Today, it worked exactly how it's supposed to work, but moving forward, how does the Secret Service beef up? Do they work with local law enforcement? What happens now?
Well, they certainly work with local law enforcement, but this is an immense challenge. First of all, you have that threat environment being so heightened. You heard what Pierre Thomas described. You also just have the pace of the campaign, and consider the way the Secret Service's resources have been stretched. After Butler, the contingent of security personnel that have been attached to the candidates was dramatically increased. Both, of course, Donald Trump, his running mate, J.D. Vance, but also Kamala Harris, and then her running mate as well, Governor Walz. And consider the fact that you have the responsibility to cover them and to protect them at a virtually presidential level of security, while you also, by the way, have a sitting president that also must have that level of security. So the challenges are immense, even in a not heightened threat environment. They're immense, but especially considering where we are, the threats. And by the way, one assassination attempt, we have seen this with school shootings, we have seen it with other types of violent attacks, can spawn copycats. We don't know what was at stake here. We don't know if this was somebody who was in some way inspired by what happened in Butler, but that's a fear that they have, is when you have an incident like this or an incident like Butler, that it could encourage others to go out and try to do the same thing, either targeting Donald Trump or targeting Kamala Harris and Governor Walz. This is a massively complex and difficult situation before you even get to the idea that in the case of Trump, it's somebody who does, in addition to the campaign activity he does, he likes to play golf and play golf regularly and play golf at a place like Trump International in West Palm Beach that is in, let's face it, an urban center, a place that is difficult to secure in and of itself.
John, obviously the most important thing here is that the president is safe. They were able to tell us that immediately. Now that we know that and there is no threat to the area, talk to me a little bit about what happens now in the campaign. What did we see politically after Butler? And what are we likely to see now? How does something like this affect, an election that is 50-something days away?
Well, look, I think there was a real moment in the immediate aftermath of Butler where there was the potential for the situation to get far worse. There was a level of anger. If you talk to Rachel Scott and to our personnel that were on the ground in Butler, and you hear firsthand account of the reactions of that crowd, which was one not just of fear, not knowing what had happened to the president and if he was okay, but also anger. And you saw it in social media postings, not just of kind of rank and file supporters of the former president, but even from his own vice president, J.D. Vance, who seemed to be blaming this attempted assassination, on Donald Trump's political opponents. Trump himself took a very deliberate step to turn the temperature down. I spoke to him about 36 hours after the attempted assassination, and he told me that he was going to be, seeking unity. It was a message of unity that didn't last very long, but it was a very important step that he took in the immediate aftermath, not to go out and to inflame already inflamed tensions. So we'll see where this goes right now, but it's a very uneasy time in our country, both in terms of the security threat, the threat of violence, but also the hair trigger of our political rhetoric in this country from not, like I said, not just ordinary people that are watching what's happening, but from political leaders who are in position to influence a heck of a lot of people.
Absolutely. Luke Barr is with us as well. And Luke, I want to talk a little bit more specifically. I know you're looking into the gun, the AK-47, with the scope that the federal authorities tell us they found. Where was this suspect before he was taken into custody on 95, I believe it was, but where was this suspect when he was right near the golf course? And talk to me a little bit more about the gun he had.
Yeah, Phil, so the suspect, what we know from Palm Beach County Sheriff Rick Bradshaw, was actually in the bushes with that gun. It's an AK-47 style rifle. I talked to a former law enforcement official who said that it's a high-powered rifle. With the scope, it makes it more dangerous. And the former president, Phil, was only 400 to 500 feet away. He was about a hole behind him. The agent that encountered the suspect was walking, doing sort of that advance work ahead of the former president when he was golfing. Saw that rifle kind of poking out through the bushes, and then engaged him. Suspect dropped the weapon, and he, then fled. And Phil, it should be noted that sort of the intelligence sharing between the sheriff's department and the Secret Service is something that law enforcement agencies have been working on for years, and it proved really helpful and timely in this situation by information sharing and putting out that bolo. It's invaluable to law enforcement, Phil.
It is, Luke. Thank you. Jay, I want to bring you back in because, John and I were just talking about it, and you don't want to talk about politics when something this dangerous and violent happens, but they were very quick to say the president is okay. He's at Mar-a-Lago. He is safe. There is no threat to the general public. So now we turn back to the campaign trail. What does this, do you think, mean for this election as it proceeds into the last 2 months?
Well, you have to look at it kind of through two different veins at once, Phil, as you just communicated, which is one, it's a law enforcement matter. It's shocking. It's a potential act of political violence. And as those individuals noted, the former president is safe. On the other hand, it's also just one other data point in what has been a race that has had these unprecedented moments after unprecedented moment after unprecedented moment, not to mention, of course, two potential assassination attempts, that one in Butler, Pennsylvania, and what appears to be now this second assassination attempt at the Trump International Golf Course in West Palm Beach. So it demonstrates the high temperature at which this race is occurring in. We do not know the motive behind any of this, and that should be noted. As law enforcement has said repeatedly, it is too early to know the motive. We don't yet even have a confirmed identity of the suspect here. We just know the various other facts of the case, right? That gunfire that the Secret Service shoot at the individual while he's at the perimeter of the golf course. This person then gets in a car. He travels, by my count, about 40 miles. He's not stopped, by the way, near that golf course. He's in Martin County, which is the neighboring county and some distance away from that golf course, which is another thing law enforcement sources have pointed me to. But putting that aside for a moment, it demonstrates the fact that this is a race that has had a high watermark after high watermark after high watermark, and these periods of high drama, and we're still only in September here, Phil.
It is remarkable to think what has happened already in this particular campaign. Retired senior Secret Service agent Don Mihalik is with us and has been for a while. Don, folks who are just joining us now, please, for a second, just tell me how unusual it is. Go over how unusual it is for Secret Service to actually fire their weapons, to discharge their weapons in any kind of incident. And then talk to me about what you see as the Secret Service protection moving forward. What does it look like for these candidates in this race?
Yeah, so when the Secret Service does its job, its first step is the advanced process and its protective methodology. That protective methodology is threat-based. That drives the type of protection that the Secret Service is applying to individuals, whether it be a former president, the vice president, or the president. That protective methodology, that threat base, is what propels the Secret Service's assets for all of those protectees. Of course, the highest level of protection the Secret Service offers is for the sitting president for obvious reasons. Now, though, in light of the threats against former President Trump, the threats permeating throughout the campaign, a lot of those threats being pushed by foreign sources, as Pierre alluded to earlier, the Secret Service is going to have to look at its protective methodology and whether it makes sense to increase that protective methodology to the level of the sitting president for both former President Trump and the sitting vice president, to make sure that they have enough resources available and at all of these protective venues to keep them safe. It's going to be a tremendous tasking on the Secret Service and a tremendous tasking, frankly, on all the stakeholders that they work with, local, state, and other federal partners, to keep the protectees in a campaign safe.
Yeah, because it is a tremendous threat environment we are in right now. Don, thank you so much. Thank you to our entire team covering this breaking news right now. We're going to take a quick break. Right after the break, we'll be back with more. What the FBI is now calling another attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump. Stay with us.
ABC News Live, honored with 8 Emmy nominations, more than any other streaming news network. And ABC News Live Prime with Linsey Davis, the first and only streaming show nominated for Best Outstanding Live News Program. This is ABC News Live. With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any other newscast. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir, America's #1 most watched newscast across all of television.
Where are we going next? We got this ongoing search for the animal we've been trying to find.
These are the last lands. The national parks around the world that have to be saved.
There.
Betrayal is one of the hardest types of trauma to overcome.
This is her knight in shining armor.
Everything felt right. All of a sudden, I found this hidden folder. I opened it. I don't think I can say it. I'm sorry. It's shocking. My stomach just dropped. He just really didn't think I had it in me to do something. So I did.
Betrayal, a father's secret. The all-new season on Hulu.
The question is, why was Matthew Perry doing ketamine? How did he get it, and who is to blame for his death?
In the case of Matthew Perry, it was kind of the perfect storm.
In September and October 2023, he was getting 6 to 8 shots of ketamine a day.
5 people, including 2 doctors, all arrested.
Matthew Perry was a money stream for everybody involved.
It is very odd to live in a world where if you died, it would shock people, but surprise no one.
What happened to Matthew Perry? Now streaming on Hulu.
Let's go.
The ship is incredible. It feels like living in a science fiction movie.
We just saw what no one has seen before.
Wow, look at that.
Oh my gosh.
Well, dead ahead! Hang on!
We are heading into the unknown.
Hammer, hammer, hammer.
It doesn't get any more cutting edge than this.
This ship is heaven. We're tending to our passengers' dreams. But make no mistake about it. It's your job to keep everyone alive. It's a huge responsibility. I'm in.
First thing in the morning.
There's a lot going on.
We're still in a flash flood warning. To catch you up with what happened overnight. Clashing over national security.
What's happening today? Tensions in the Middle East.
What people are talking about. The worries on Wall Street.
Fast, straightforward.
With some fun in between. Catching up on sleep during the weekend could be good for your heart.
Non-alcoholic bars are popping up in a growing number of cities. That's the spirit.
America This Morning.
America's #1 early morning news.
On ABC News Live.
Why do so many people start their day here?
From ABC News, this is Start Here.
To be in the know and get a different take on the day's top stories.
A lot of news today, so let's get into it.
Listen now to the Daily News Podcast honored with 4 Edward R. Murrow Awards and see why the New York Times calls it a news podcast worth listening to. Start Here, ABC News. Make it your daily first listen.
Now, that's a part of the story I bet you didn't see coming.
Wherever you get your podcasts, Start Here.
Good evening, I'm Phil Lipoff. Let's get straight to our breaking news. This is a developing story we've been following for a couple of hours now. What the FBI says is an apparent second assassination attempt on former President Trump. It happened just a few hours ago on the former president's golf course, which is right there in West Palm Beach, Florida. Here is what we know right now. The former president is safe and unharmed, and that is most important. He's already posted, "I will never surrender." Law enforcement say they have a suspect in custody. Senior law enforcement official tells ABC News a suspect with a high-powered rifle and a scope, among other things, was spotted in the area where the former president was golfing. Secret Service agents say they opened fire on the suspect once they saw the barrel of a rifle. That man then took off. You are looking at images of a car stopped by the Martin County Sheriff's Office, and this is video of the former president heading back to Mar-a-Lago. Deputies say they took the suspect out of that car and into custody. No word yet on a motive. The investigation, of course, is just getting underway. This comes just 9 weeks after the first assassination attempt on the former president. His ear grazed by a bullet during a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, and then these pictures. The investigation just getting underway, and we have a team all over covering this right now, starting with ABC News senior producer Jack Date. Jack, we got an amazing amount of information from that one news conference, and they did not say they were going to come out and brief us again this evening. They gave us everything they had at the time. Tell us what we know.
That's right. I think we got a tremendous amount of information out of that briefing. What we learned, according to the sheriff, Rick Bradshaw, who briefed reporters a short time ago, is that the Secret Service, while protecting former President Trump on his golf course in West Palm Beach, Florida, the agents that were in charge of getting ahead of him and clearing the area in front of him and the hole in front of him, spotted a person on the perimeter of the golf course near the fence line. They saw what appeared to be the barrel of a rifle. A Secret Service agent fired upon that individual, and that individual fled into the woods. And at that point, they informed local law enforcement. The alert was put out to local authorities who were also in the area. They locked down the area immediately. A bystander spots an individual coming out of the tree line. They get into a black Nissan vehicle and they speed off. That person had the presence of mind to take a photo, take a picture of this individual and their vehicle, most importantly, because that had on it critical information about the person's license plate. The sheriff's office was quickly able to get that information from a bystander. They put the information into a license plate reader system. These are systems that are around the roads in Florida that can read passively license plate information, and when they populate that equipment with information that they're looking for, they can locate cars that they are on the lookout for. And they did just that in this case. And about 40 miles away in Martin County, adjacent to Palm Beach County, they were able to locate the vehicle. And authorities in Martin County from that sheriff's office were able to stop that vehicle and bring the person inside that vehicle into custody. Authorities, meanwhile, back by the golf course, were searching the woods. In the woods, they found a very concerning finding, which was an AK-47 rifle with a scope. They also found 2 backpacks. Inside the backpacks, associated with the backpacks, was a GoPro camera, also some sort of ceramic tiles. It's unclear what the purpose of the tiles were, whether they were armor plating or whether they were tiles that were used for some sort of target practice or something. It's still unclear at this point, certainly part of the investigation. But that individual was taken into custody. They used bomb-sniffing dogs to check the car before bringing that into custody. That's being searched, and authorities, of course, running down every bit of information they can find associated with this individual to understand what he was doing there, and in association with and in proximity to former President Trump. So significant amount of news there, and a big job by investigators, and principally the FBI, who's in charge of this investigation now. They've deployed resources, including their evidence response team and other crisis teams and investigators, again, to run down every detail, run down forensics. They're going to be looking at this GoPro camera to see if that has in it any useful and relevant information to this investigation. So a lot more to go through for investigators and a lot more to learn on this matter.
I want to bring in ABC News' Jay O'Brien. Jay, talk to us about how the Trump campaign is responding. Earlier on, John Santucci told us how the Trump family was responding, but I want to know how the Trump campaign is responding tonight.
Yeah, there is this statement put out by the Trump campaign. It's signed by former President Trump himself. It's in the form of an email that you would send to your donor list and your other contact list. And it says, I'll read it directly, quote, "There were gunshots in my vicinity." You see some of it there on your screen. But before rumors start spiraling out of control, I wanted you to hear this first. I am safe and well. He signs off with saying, "Nothing will slow me down. I will never surrender." And again, it is signed by former President Trump. So it does reference, of course, that incident at his golf club. And it demonstrates the fact, Phil, that this has been an unprecedented campaign cycle with one confirmed assassination attempt against the former president and what appears to be authorities investigating this at least as another now at his golf course in West Palm Beach.
Jay, I'm curious. You follow the campaign closer than most. After the shooting in Butler, after that assassination attempt, the RNC was shortly after that, and we saw a very solemn, subdued former President Trump talking about unity. I'm wondering if by that statement you have any idea what we are going to see in the days to come in his demeanor this time.
Well, I think it's incredibly impossible to get into Donald Trump's head, right? But the other thing to keep in mind is a demonstration of the fact that, again, this is a historic point in this campaign, and one that demonstrates the high temperature of this campaign. And you mentioned Butler, Pennsylvania. We have a little bit of breaking news on that front, actually, as well, which is a statement was just put out by the task force, the congressional task force of Republicans and Democrats in the House that have come together to investigate what they say were failures by the Secret Service in Butler, Pennsylvania, to prevent that assassination attempt. I'll just read you a little bit of that statement. It's just late breaking. It just hit my email. It says, quote, "The task force is monitoring monitoring this attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump in West Palm Beach. They say they have requested a briefing from the Secret Service on this matter, and they are, of course, thankful that the former president was not harmed, but, quote, remain deeply concerned about political violence and condemn it in all of its forms. We do not yet know the motive of the gunman here, by the way, Phil. One more thing to keep in mind when you hear about the House requesting a briefing on this is I've heard from law enforcement officials in West Palm Beach who say that they have long been concerned about securing Trump's golf course. Trump's golf course is not Mar-a-Lago. It's some miles down the road on the mainland. You have to motorcade there from Mar-a-Lago. In fact, you're seeing images of the motorcade returning to Mar-a-Lago after this incident. And the golf course is in, as John described earlier, this city of West Palm Beach is near the airport, and Trump says this occurred on the 5th hole. I've been to that golf course. The 5th hole is about as close to the street in some instances as you could get. There's a fence and some bushes that separate the 5th hole from the street, but it's right up against the street. And I've heard law enforcement sources really say for years, and some of them reiterated it to me today in the wake of this incident, that they have been concerned about how close someone could just walk off the street and get up to the fence line of that golf course. And of course, this incident today has only ratcheted up those concerns. And now, of course, we know members of Congress are going to look into presumably that and other things too.
Yeah, that concern obviously warranted. Jay, thank you. White House correspondent Mary Alice Parks joins me now. Mary Alice, I understand both President Biden and the Harris campaign were immediately briefed on this situation, but also they've responded to it. They've put out statements.
Yeah, Phil, the White House telling us that President Biden and Vice President Harris were both briefed on this situation. They put out a statement saying that they were relieved, of course, to hear that the former president was okay, that they would continue to get updates throughout the day. The vice president put out her own statement saying basically as much, but adding also that violence has no place in America. You know, so far, the White House directing all sort of questions, follow-up questions about what exactly has happened today to local law enforcement, to Secret Service. No doubt, of course, they are tracking things closely, trying to understand and continue to make sure that the principals understand exactly what happened. You know, I will tell you that you can feel the heightened security presence here at the White House. The Secret Service has sort of locked down the blocks right around the White House. The president is here. We know that there was also a heightened police presence and security presence in Northwest D.C. around Naval Observatory, the residence of the vice president. She is also in Washington today. I mean, look, this is a White House that talks often about needing to lower the political temperature, says often that there is no place for political violence in this country, in our discourse, in our elections. After that assassination attempt against Trump in July in Butler, Pennsylvania, the Secret Service director, Kim Cheadle, resigned. There's only an acting director in place. President Biden at the time asked Secret Service to completely review all of their protocols. At that moment, that was ahead, of course, of the Republican National Convention. But no doubt they are going to continue to face such scrutiny in this moment and so many questions about what they can do going forward to try to keep not only candidates, but obviously presidents, former presidents, secure. There is a significantly bigger presence and sort of security perimeter around sitting presidents, around the sitting vice president, than there is around the former president. Some of that did change, of course, after Butler, Pennsylvania. But again, there's going to clearly have to be a review here about whether the changes made after what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania were enough, what other changes need to happen going forward, and how to sort of deal with not only the close, sort of immediate proximity and security around the principal, around, in this case, the former president, but also the larger area that they secure. I was traveling with Vice President Harris in Pennsylvania the last few weekends. She was campaigning, trying to talk to voters, shake hands with voters, stop in small businesses. I was struck by how much harder it seemed for her to be able to do that. It seemed in the moment to me, it appeared to me, as someone who's covered a lot of campaigns, that Secret Service was keeping her in a much tighter bubble, making it harder for her to interact with voters. But all of this is going to, Phil, of course, be under scrutiny, under just sort of questions not only from lawmakers, but I imagine from the White House going forward.
Oh, yeah, that makes retail politics so much more difficult because now the Secret Service is going to be the threat level is going to be even more elevated. I want to bring in Luke Barr again. Luke, let's talk about this elevated threat environment. We know we're in it. Just how elevated is it?
Well, Phil, it's so elevated that the Secret Service director said the lights are blinking red in the threat level. He said that it's something that he hasn't seen really since 9/11, around that time. And look, federal law enforcement, the FBI director, the attorney general, they have been sounding the alarm on domestic violent extremism, which is sort of what is, and that lone wolf threat in particular is the most concerning to these law enforcement officials. But look, Phil, there is a level of threat. Everybody from the FBI to the attorney general has even spoken about how elevated the threat is. It's really a time, according to these officials, that people can't take their eye off the ball on.
Retired senior Secret Service agent Don Mihalik is with us as well. Don, we appreciate you sticking around all afternoon and sort of briefing us on the behind-the-scenes efforts of the Secret Service and what happens and what is standard operating procedure. I'd like to talk about the challenge that the Secret Service has now moving forward. The threat environment, as our Pierre Thomas has talked about, was great before Butler. It increased exponentially after Butler, and now this. What does the Secret Service have in place for this kind of threat environment?
Well, the Secret Service is, used to unique challenges and used to large challenges, and they plan for the campaign for 3 years before the campaign starts. And they do that by training other agencies to work with the Secret Service, by increasing resources and materials. All that being said, though, the Secret Service still has a finite amount of resources to staff the campaign, which is where the protective methodology comes into place in order to mitigate threats, in order to use some technologies to be able to help mitigate those threats so it's less personnel dependent. I think moving forward, the Secret Service has to look at the campaign in this new threat environment, which is being exacerbated by situations like this. We saw a similar increase in threats to schools recently after the Georgia school shooting, where schools across the country faced increased threats coming in online and from all corners of the internet and social media. Now we're probably going to see the same thing here, and the Secret Service is going to have to be ready with every single event they do and with every protectee they're handling to make sure they surge the resources that necessary in order to keep it safe, which to me means everything may look more like a presidential site than what we've seen before. They'll surge manpower, they'll lean more on their local stakeholders, they'll lean more on the other agencies they work with in order to create that protective bubble around all the protectees. Today was a tremendous success, everything worked, and we'll hope that's going to continue.
All right, and Don, just quickly, to underscore how worried and concerned and how dangerous today's situation was, how rare is it for Secret Service officers to discharge their weapon? Secret Service agents.
Thankfully, it's extremely rare, Phil, because the Secret Service does such a tremendous job, as they did in this situation, with the protective advance and the protective methodologies, that they often are able to mitigate the threat before the threat even happens and keep the threats outside of the protected venue versus inside. So it is extremely rare, and this situation was a success in that they were able to identify the threat and stop the threat ahead of time, and of course, identify the suspect and bring the suspect in so that way we can figure out exactly what was going on with this potential assassin.
Yeah, and look, this is an agency that exists to protect all these people that mean so much to this country, put their body in harm's way. So obviously our thanks to the Secret Service and everybody who worked in conjunction to keep the president safe today. Mary Alice, I want to go back to you at the White House. You have been to so many of these events. I've been to so many campaign rallies for the former president back in 2016 now. How have you noticed the security increase, even just from the assassination attempt in Butler 9 weeks ago?
Yeah, well, the most immediate sort of visible difference, of course, is more bulletproof glass. We've seen that used more not only at the former president's rallies, but other events, other campaign events. But it is hard to tell some of the changes that Secret Service has made. They're very tight-lipped about changes they make to protocol. It has been standard operating procedure for those campaign events to be on tough, tight lockdown. It's like going through an airport plus. I mean, you go through a metal detector. perimeter. They screen all of our camera equipment with Secret Service dogs, sort of bomb-sniffing dogs. The big question, of course, is how far away they set up that perimeter, where they're doing that screening. In the last few days, I've been out on the campaign trail with the vice president. I've noticed that they have set up a very large perimeter for vehicles. It was incredibly hard to park close to the vice president's recent event. People walked for blocks to get in line to go through security to access her event. I think the question now is what other changes can they make? And of course, they're thinking about security on multiple levels and of course in multiple types of situations and types of events. It's one thing to have an advertised campaign stop, which they know is a different kind of target, where people are going to be gathering, where there's a time and location posted. It's another to be covering a more private situation, a more private afternoon, like of course the former president was experiencing today, at a golf course. It is incredibly tricky for the Secret Service to figure out not only how to protect the immediate vicinity, I'm talking like within feet, like the immediate vicinity around a principal. They have very standard, tough protocol about how they approach and deal any member of the public that can get in any way close to the immediate sort of vicinity of a principal. But it is very different for Secret Service to figure out how to keep a large perimeter, especially if it's more of a soft perimeter, protected, and where exactly to set that perimeter. This is going to be sort of I imagine, the focus of the conversation going forward. Not necessarily the changes we will see at campaign events, but what we will see, what changes they will have to make for protecting these principals between campaign events in more of their private and personal capacity as they go, back and forth between home, back and forth between their personal events, Phil.
Yeah, and you know that better than most. There'll be a lot of security we don't see as well that increases in the coming months. Luke, when any law enforcement agency is assessing what kind of threat they're looking at, right? They assess the ability of the person to carry out what they wanted to carry out and the tools that they had to do it. We have already been told by the FBI and the Secret Service that this particular suspect had an AK-47, that's a high-powered assault-style rifle with a scope on it, 2 backpacks, a GoPro. What do we know about where this person was when the Secret Service had eyes on them? And what do we know, if anything, about this particular gun?
Well, Phil, what we know is that this person was in the bushes. So basically what happened, according to Palm Beach County Sheriff Rick Bradshaw, who briefed reporters now a couple of hours ago, was that this person was in the bushes. An agent was doing sort of their advance work, went up and sort of walking up to the next hole. The former president was at the hole behind this agent, spotted the weapon sort of poking out of the bushes, and then engaged the suspect. Suspect dropped the weapon and then fled, obviously, as we reported out. Now, this weapon, an AK-47 style weapon, I was talking to a former federal law enforcement official, and he said that this weapon, is something that is high powered. It is not often recovered in, the type of, street crime that we see every day. It was, in fact, sort of on the lower end of recoveries, that we've seen. So all the more concerning, Phil, how this suspect got the weapon and also used the scope. I mean, the agent said in the press conference that the former president was only 400 to 500 yards away from the shooter. So it really kind of raises a lot of questions, what the motive was, which we don't know, and sort of, quick work by that agent who spotted the would-be alleged assassin. Phil.
Yeah, and as we were told and as we know from the shooting in Butler, that 300, 400, 500 yard distance for that kind of rifle. It was different in Butler. It was sort of AR style, but similar in nature, and they can make that shot, pretty easily. Jack, I understand there's a new statement issued by the Secret Service special agent in charge at the Miami field office. What does it say?
Well, it's essentially acknowledging what they said in the press conference. It's effectively saying that they had this incident. The president is safe, and they're really deferring further questions to the lead investigator investigative agency, which is the FBI now in this matter. There's obviously a lot of information to get through, a lot of evidence to exploit. They obviously recovered a rifle. They're going to look at what shots were fired by whom. Presumably the Secret Service fired shots in the direction of this individual who fled. They're going to look for any other shell casings and things of that nature associated with that, so they can determine that, and exploit any digital media on the GoPro, phones, anything else that they find.
All right, Jack, thanks. Jay, I want to ask you now, because we've covered the president's safe. The president's safe. There's no threat to that area, so law enforcement tells us anymore. So I want to talk politically for a second, because we saw that this had the first assassination attempt on the president in Butler, Pennsylvania, had a real effect on the campaign. It was right before the RNC. It even had an effect on how they ran the RNC that night, the Republican National Convention. What do you think this means for the presidential race moving forward?
Well, it demonstrates in this race that political violence or potential political violence, what is being investigated by the FBI as a possible assassination attempt, has become somewhat of an element of this race. It's now happened twice, right? You had that assassination attempt in Butler, Pennsylvania. The former president is hit with a bullet in the ear. And then, of course, this incident, which is being investigated as an assassination attempt as well, at his golf club in West Palm Beach. And we've already seen, when you talk about the impacts that this is going to have on political discourse, both Republicans and Democrats come out and say that they condemn political violence in all forms, and they are happy that the former president is safe here. For instance, we've seen high-profile Republicans, J.D. Vance, Trump's running mate, on down, saying that they are grateful that Trump is safe. James Comer, who's the chair of the powerful House Oversight Committee, which is one of the more politically elbow-throwing committees on Capitol Hill, has said that in his view, both Republicans and Democrats need to come out and condemn political violence. We've heard just in the last few moments from Chuck Schumer, the top Democrat in the Senate, who has come out and said that there is no place for political violence in this country. He says he's also been briefed on this incident in West Palm Beach, Phil.
All right, Jay, thank you. Dawn, I want to bring you back in and talk about the interagency coordination that happened today, because there was a lot of criticism after the shooting in Butler, Pennsylvania. Who knew what? Who was supposed to be on this roof? Who was talking to who? That's all played out since then. Today, it seems like this was textbook how to prevent something like this from happening.
Absolutely, Phil. This situation, and thanks in part to the fact that the Secret Service has been down there for so long and working with the local sheriff's departments because of former President Trump's residence there, continued residence there. This today worked pretty seamlessly, from the fact that the agents on the golf course were able to jump ahead, identify the threat, take actions to mitigate the threat. Once the threat left the area after being shot at, other agents were able to come in, identify the suspect's location, talk to witnesses, provide information to the local sheriffs. We're able to put that out widely across the local area. And then thanks to the advances of technology with license plate readers, they had a plate, they put the license plate out, and they were able to track this car throughout the 2 counties that are surrounding or adjacent to Mar-a-Lago. As I said, with license plate readers, when you come into New York City, you ping in New York City at a tunnel and they can track you throughout. So brought the suspect back. Locals have him. He's going to be charged locally, and he'll also probably be charged federally. It is a textbook case of tremendous interagency cooperation and using advanced technology that law enforcement has access to today. Tremendous success today.
Absolutely, and thank heaven it was. Dawn, thanks so much for taking us through this, and thanks to all of our team covering this breaking news this evening. We're going to have continuing coverage throughout the night, of course, and tomorrow morning, starting on ABC News Live first with Diane Macedo. I'm Phil Lipoff. Thanks so much for streaming with us.
ABC News Live, honored with 8 Emmy nominations, more than any other streaming news network. And ABC News Live Prime with Linsey Davis, the first and only streaming show nominated for Best Outstanding Live News Program. This is ABC News Live. With so much at stake, so much on the line, more Americans turn here than any other newscast. ABC News World News Tonight with David Muir, America's #1 most watched newscast across all